Right now, you're on one of two paths. Path one is the struggling climber. You queue up, you play your games, you maybe watch a guide here and there, but your rank isn't changing. You don't really know why you're stuck, so you try out different champions, different playstyles, or you blame your teammates. But most importantly, you're not seeing any results. Now, path 2 is the intentional climber. This is the player who understands exactly how improvement works, knows which fundamentals to work on, and sees consistent results over time. You're not just playing the game, you're improving with intention. And if you're on path 1 right now, this video is going to move you to path 2 and save you hundreds of wasted and frustrating games. And if you feel like you're already on path 2, odds are you've hit a plateau that you just can't seem to break through. Maybe you've been the same rank for a couple of months. This video is going to show you exactly why that's happening and how to push through it. This video course isn't just theory. My name is Tim and joining me today is AJ, and we built it from a combined 7 years of experience coaching thousands of players at each rank in League of Legends. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we're going to break down what your rank actually means and how climbing in League really works. The feedback loops, the mindset, the systems most players are completely ignoring. Then we're going to go rank by rank. The exact fundamentals you need, the common mistakes players make, the mindset traps holding them back, and the practical steps to actually climb to the next rank. This video is your complete roadmap, so let's get into it. So when it comes to climbing in League, we first have to define what our rank actually means. Because your rank is a reflection of your consistent level of play. Whenever we talk about ranks, we're not really going to be looking at the number itself. We're more or less going to look at your level of play at a specific rank, because you're as good as your worst mistakes and not your peaks. What do we mean with this? When your rank is built up from like 6, 7, 8 different fundamentals all at once, and the average level of play of all of these fundamentals, that is your rank. So if your laning is, for example, at a diamond 4 level, but your mid game is at a platinum 4 level, what happens is that your average level of play is about emerald 4. And this is where you're eventually going to get up. So if you want to climb in League of Legends, you want to pump up, boost up your worst mistakes, not your peaks, to increase your level of play. So we need to reframe. How can I climb in League? To how can I learn the game in the most efficient way so we can fast track and speed up our improvement process, and that is going to allow us to climb. And that's exactly what we're going to be covering today, because most League advice like this, and I watched the video, by the way, literally today, top fundamentals to climb in fucking silver. And what he said is you need to farm better. I was watching, I was like, you're right. You do need to farm better. What we're going to do is we're going to discuss how do we get to the understanding that we need to farm better in our own gameplay. How do we then approach this in a step-by-step better? And how can we fundamentally learn so that we become a better player, and eventually that will allow us to climb. So we're going to go layer deeper and go into the how and why. So how do you know when you're stuck or plateaued? Generally speaking, you resonate with any of these quotes. Over the past year and a half, I've compiled all the big things that players in our coaching program have said to us. Which are the key ones that stand out to you here, AJ?
Yeah, and I'll just go with myself too, because I was a student at MLA at some point too. And one of the big ones for me is if I make one mistake, the game's over. I hear and see this one all the time, both from myself in the past and other students, or struggling with managing their emotions, or they don't know what to do in the game, or they're comparing themselves to their friends and their rank is all they care about. If you're ever getting these questions of doubt, or the game feels like a gargantuan task to overcome, that's how you know you're plateaued. That's when you know you've hit that wall, you've hit your ceiling at the moment, and you need to find some sort of breakthrough. Exactly.
So let's break down why these feelings and why these emotions come up with being plateaued. So like we said, we were talking about your average level of play, right? That multiple fundamentals at a specific rank make you that rank. Now, if you're stuck or plateaued, you don't know what you don't know. So you're at a specific rank and you feel like your team is maybe inting, where you make this one mistake, but your other fundamentals are not good enough to compensate for you being able to make that one mistake so you can actually climb. And that's why a lot of people genuinely believe that this EOM, that engagement optimized matchmaking, is legit, because they only see their one mistakes and they do not see the fact that these other fundamentals that they have are not at the level so that they can freely climb. Now, about your experience here, AJ, right? The time when you were actually climbing. How did you feel? How do you feel when you're climbing and when you're not at a stuck and a plateau point?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with the negative. How did I feel when I wasn't climbing? And I remember this so vividly. I still remember the very first coaching session I ever had is I was Grandmaster. I went into a session and I said exactly this. I said, I feel like challenger players and pro players do things better than me, but I don't know what. And I think that's the key thing that really is really, really important, is that a platinum player, for example, can know that an emerald or a diamond player is playing better, but they don't even know what, right? Because they don't know what they don't know, as you were saying. So I think for me, what caused me to break through my plateau is I got really specific with my language, and I figured out what exactly do I need to focus on? What tangible skills can I focus on that I can see results day in and day out?
Yeah, very interesting. And to explain what you're feeling when you're actually climbing is you feel like you're a level above everyone else. You can feel the game play out in slow motion and you're like in full control of every decision. That's when you're ready to climb. And until you're to that point, you're always going to have these narratives and these quotes pop up until you fundamentally improved at every point in your game where you can say and feel that you're better than everyone in your games. And you will just instantly shoot up to the next level. So how do we actually break through plateaus in League of Legends? Well, climbing in League of Legends isn't linear, guys. It does not go up in one single line. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but before you actually get to that point where you get to the next level and are above everyone else in your gameplay and you're in full control, you need to upgrade multiple fundamentals, right? Improving just one fundamental isn't going to make you a better player on average. You need to bump up your entire skill set. What is your experience with players that you've seen break through plateaus and in your own experience as a player as well?
Yeah, so I think really what it comes down to is, first of all, curiosity. So being really curious about the types of skills you need to improve at. Because what I see a lot is that people tend to get comfortable in improving skills they're already good at. So like if you're like, I'll give myself as an example. I was the Yasuo main for 8 years. You know what the only thing I focused on was? How can I play a fight better? How could I win wall better? How could I R better? So what would happen is I would just be plateaued and plateaued and plateaued and plateaued because the skills that I needed to develop weren't getting better. And so the breakthrough for me was once I started thinking about, okay, who's my secondary win con? How do I play a game with Yasuo if I don't have a knockup, right? How do I want to use my win wall in this particular game? Right? When do I sideline versus when do I group? And once I started thinking about skills that I was uncomfortable with, and I put myself in uncomfortable situations, that's when it actually allowed me to break through that plateau and reach that next point.
So what does breaking through that plateau actually look like if we zoom in on the individual plateau? And the truth is, this is what climbing in League is all about. And the best way that we can showcase this is through the river analogy. Because what we're trying to do is the way you want to improve a fundamental part of your gameplay is by focusing on habit creation and pattern recognition. In the end, you want to make everything a habit so you don't have to think about something and you can just execute it in the game. And climbing in League of Legends is about finding the key blockers to what makes your river stop flowing. So this is the LP river, guys. Okay. And currently the LP is flowing. So we are healthy. We are very happy. We're climbing at the moment. But we are currently in this section right here. And our next plateau point is coming up. And what starts happening is that the river starts clogging with debris all over the place. So we got a place clogging up here. We got a place clogging up here. One right there. And one right there. So there's 4 choke points that are blocked off that prevent the LP from flowing right now. And the way you want to improve and get to the position where you can climb in League is by tackling these choke points one by one. So one of these is, for example, this choke point right here, which is our trading is not good enough. So by identifying that your trading is not good enough, you're going to then zoom in. You're going to then improve that fundamental through setting yourself specific learning objectives. More on that later. And once you do that, a part of the river now starts flowing. Now you need to also take your next fundamental, which is maybe your mid-game awareness around neutral objectives. And you need to improve that point as well. And what we're going to see is that the river is starting to clear up. Now, if we improve our tempo a little bit and maybe a little bit of our matchup understanding, and suddenly we are good enough that we can get to the point where we get over the hurdle. And then, yes, guys, we do it all over again. Rinse and repeat. What is your experience using this river analogy here, AJ?
Yeah, I think the thing I love about this river analogy that I resonate a lot with is that just getting rid of one of the debris is not going to solve all your problems, right? Because again, tying it back to my own experience when I was Yasuo DP, I was like, great. Well, I know how to play Yasuo when I have knockups now. Why the fuck am I not climbing? Right? Why am I not improving? It's because there's still a bunch of other blockages and debris in the way. So what you guys have to remember is that you have to clear out a lot of them first before the river can start flowing at the pace you were used to before.
Absolutely. And there's a catch, okay? And that catch is not clearing out the blockages properly. All right. Yeah. So what happens a lot that we see in a lot of players in our coaching program. Funnily enough, I actually had a guy who recently joined. I did my first coaching session with him. And after the first coaching session, we worked on lane assignments in the mid game, and we worked on information gathering around neutral objectives, right? And he was focusing on that, and he was actually climbing already because this was his one big blocker. This guy came in the program, he had one big blocker, and we started removing this blocker, and he started climbing a little bit already, and then suddenly he got put in a slightly higher elo, and he was like, I need to focus on my laning, just immediately. And guess what happened when he did that? He only cleared the blockade halfway. It's stuck back in, and now he's sitting on the borderline demoting to Emerald, back from Diamond. Yeah. So you want to be very careful. Like, we're talking habit creation and pattern recognition, guys. You need to create these habits. If you don't create these habits, you will not make any progress. You got to turn your brain on automatic mode. You can't be thinking about specific things, and it takes time before you allow your brain to do that, because your brain's lazy, guys, and it doesn't want to change unless you force it to. So how do you actually improve one of these specific fundamentals step by step? AJ, walk us through the process that we take in our coaching sessions. Like, if you coach a player, how do you show to them that they need to improve a fundamental, and how they exactly do that?
Yeah, so in my opinion, based on the premise we have displayed here, I think the first thing is visualization, right? So getting to actually visualize what the alternative looks like, right? So for example, let's say they play TF and they go for a roam and they lose 3 waves. I visualize to them, I show them, look, this is the result of you losing those 3 waves. Now imagine if you didn't lose those 3 waves, right? So visualization is the first step, right? Then the second step is intention, which is /Q. And what that really means is you need to find some sort of spot in the game that will allow you to visualize this scenario, right? So it's like maybe the enemy has a stacking wave, so you can't R as TF, right? That would be the Q. Right? And then the execution would be build that habit creation, execute upon it, right? Force yourself to not move on a stacking wave. And then what you do is review. You look at it again, you're like, well, now that I look at it in hindsight, how much value did I get from not losing those waves? And we go to the wave example again. And then again, now by reviewing, you further visualize and you further refine it.
Exactly. And this is basically a never-ending cycle, because what you got to keep in mind is that if you're going to try to improve something in League, especially if you figure out that there's a big hole in your gameplay, you first need to see what the good way of approaching it looks like. Yes. And then you can move slowly closer from that initial way of how you played it towards how it should look like. And you just do it step by step. And the first time that you're going to try it, guys, it's not going to be perfect. It's still going to be closer towards how you did it in the past, because you make mistakes. That's part of the process. But it's at least one small step, maybe 10% closer towards what it should look like. And then it's going to, on the next time you do it, 10% closer again. And you do that for a week or two, and you visualize it continuously, you're unstoppable. Eventually you're going to get to the point where you see so many of those exact same scenarios that you see the patterns pop up in your game, and you're like, oh man, I've done this 50 times before. I know exactly what it should look like. I've seen it 50 times. And that's how you can eventually build that habit. And you can then see it during the game. And by seeing it during the game, you will eventually improve, because you can start recognizing the patterns. So now we know how to improve an individual fundamental. We're going to look at the catalyst of improvement. This is the word or the mindset that will allow you to improve extremely fast. And it's called intention. AJ, elaborate. What is intention?
Yeah, so the way I like to view intention in terms of League is it's the cognizant idea that you are taking ownership for your own decisions, and that you are thinking about what you want to be doing rather than playing off of intuition or off of feeling. So what do I mean by that, right? So what happens for a lot of players is that they make decisions kind of just based off of how they feel. It's like, oh, I feel like this play looks good, or my team, I'm scared that my team is gonna die, so I make that play. That's not playing with intention, right? What playing with intention is like, okay, I'm playing Azir, I'm going to sit here and relax until I have Nashers, right? And then I'm gonna play side, and I'm gonna make the call that I want my team to cover me side. That is intention. And the reason why this is so positive and so good, and why this relates to being confident, is that if you play with intention and you make a good quality decision or a winning call, you get a positive feedback loop. So you get reinforced that your ideas make sense, right? And then if you make a losing play, right, and that intentional decision was poor, that also is good because that shows you, hey, whatever I'm doing isn't working. Whereas if you play just off of feelings, you're never going to get this feedback loop, right? You're never going to get this revision because it's easy to be like, well, this is just how I felt, or I was playing based on what other people were doing.
Yeah, and this is the truth of, I think, like 70% of all the players joining in our coaching program is they do not have this intention, because it's not something that you can build in, because you got to have a little bit of confidence to have intention. Okay, you got to be willing to take the risk, put your hand on the chopping block, and being okay with just making the game losing call and just getting flamed.
Yes.
Right. And in hindsight, that's the best thing that can happen to you, because you then can figure out you hate getting flamed, right? Well, that's going to allow us to learn and figure out, okay, how comes that we get in this position? Because you don't like bad emotions, allows your brain to change. So opening up that feedback loop is the key to improvement. And there's two ways to do that, right? It's through intention and it's through revision. And if you can combine them, revision is basically reviewing. That's when your improvement and basically also your rank goes up the fastest. It's my favorite formula. Repetition times intention and times revision is improvement, guys. So this intention is something that we're going to be talking about a lot throughout the rest of this video as well, because of how crucial it is for climbing.
Great. So how fast can you climb in League? Well, typically without playing with any reviewing, without any intuition, you're just playing based off of feeling. And this is also going from my own experience and my experience as a coach. You can climb about 200 to 300 LP a year. And that's like, that can be demoralizing, right? Because it's like, well, I went from Emerald 4, start of January, next January, I'm Emerald 2. What the hell? That's it. Whereas if you play with intention and you revise your intention, and it's like, imagine you're studying for a test, right? And you put your theories into practice, this could be bumped up all the way to 600 LP a year, even more than that. I personally climbed 1,000 LP in 1 year before doing this. And so, again, like we said previously, it's about repetition. So raw number of games times how intentional you are with your games times how much are you revising and actually sitting down and reflecting upon what the mistakes you're making are.
Exactly. And I want to discuss two types of players, right? Because you have the type of players that are actually playing with intention, and they're the theory type of guys, right? And what they do is, the reason why they stay stuck is because they usually don't get enough repetitions in. There's just people that only get like 100, 200 games in per year. I hate to break it to you guys, but that's not enough to get to that next level. So those are the theory type of guys. But you also got the spamming games guys. They get like 1,000, 1,500 games in a year, but they just queue up too much. That leads to them not being able to like reflect, and they kind of get stuck in that automatic automatic go mode. Yeah, just too much in the feeling. And this is the people that are like truly hard stuck, right? Those players, they don't even know the way forward, because they don't also know how to build intention.
Yeah,
exactly. So like AJ mentioned, right? If you are very intentional and you also review your games, you can bump that up to 400 to 600 LP per year. And the way that you're going to do that is through the learning objective, okay? So you're going to have this fundamental that you want to work on, that you previously established as being the fundamental that's important for you to work on. And you're going to make an in-game learning objective, which is an intention. A really good example is what I see with a lot of RE players that I'm coaching is fighting without ult.
The kryptonite.
Fighting without ult. They use their ult in lane because they see like a solo kill. 30 seconds later, there's a big fight at dragging. they still play, and then it leads to bad position because everyone dies, because without R, you're just not that strong. So a very clear in-game learning objective is don't waste your R randomly in lane, and actively think about neutral objectives so you can time your ult with these neutrals. And then out of game, if you ever feel like you took a fight without ult, or you were forced to use your ult in lane for whatever reason, you can go and revise, figure out why that's the case. And by doing that for 2 weeks, I can guarantee you're not going to make any slip-ups in those ults again. Because that's what the power of that visualization does. Now, coaching, right, helps massively with intention and revision. There's a lot of people, like I think 80-90% of the players coming into our coaching program struggle from the position that they don't understand how to improve this, and they do get enough repetitions in. Yeah. And that's totally normal, by the way. That is so normal, because who teaches this, right? How can you learn this if you've never actively tried it? So abstract, exactly. So the players coming in, right, what we do is we get them into a coaching session. We give them a specific learning objective, like I just explained with the RE example. And what we then do is we tell them, in 3 weeks, come back with a new coaching session. And in the meantime, if there's anything that you don't understand about learning this habit, or you run into any roadblocks, we utilize the hidden climbing cheat codes that no one's utilizing except for the people in our coaching program, which is the VOD questions channel. So like we mentioned, guys, climbing in League is all about habit creation and pattern recognition. And we're going to talk about one of the most important climbing fundamentals that we ever are going to discuss, which is what we call theory overload. Okay, we got to only focus on one fundamental, because otherwise we go back to the river analogy. The river is not going to get unclogged. Guys, you need to make it a habit. So what you do is you get this one learning objective that you're going to improve. And then by getting intermediate feedback in between, like your coaching sessions, or if you don't want coaching, that's totally fine, right? Then what you do is you just create your own learning objectives, but make sure that you're at least like reviewing in between and seeing if you're on the right track. And in our coaching program, the way that it happens is through the VOD questions channel. So here is an example of Fang. Fang has recently climbed a lot. And the reason why this case is because he's a curious bastard. Okay. And curiosity really helps in regards to climbing, like AJ already mentioned. Because what happened, Fang got a learning objective in regards to taking fights on Ahri. Hence is why we got the Ahri example right here. And he was understanding that there was a fight that didn't go all too well. So he put a clip on it in the VOD questions channel. He got feedback. We can give him some intermediate feedback. We can steer you in the right direction. And by doing this, you're going to create a habit within 3 weeks, just easily. Now, like I said, if you don't have access to coaching, that's totally fine. You need to nail the curiosity part. AJ, talk to me about curiosity. Why is it so important to have curiosity to climb?
Yeah. So let's first define what curiosity actually means. So it's kind of a vague term. What curiosity really means for me, this is what I've done, is seeking the truth out, right? Exposing your own delusions to yourself, right? That's what curiosity really is. It's hey, I had this certain feeling or intention in this specific scenario, and I want to figure out what would a better player do differently in this exact same situation. It's seeker of truth. That's a good way of describing it in my head. And so really what you guys need to do is, this is how I like to frame it, is start by assuming you're wrong and prove yourself right, rather than starting by assuming you're right and proving yourself wrong. Because the way you do this is now you're trying to find the things that you're doing well. And then if you're like, well, I actually don't think I did this well. I don't think I did this well. I don't think I did this well. I'm going to seek the truth and figure out what can I apply that a better player would do that I can do in my own gameplay to allow me to climb.
Yeah, this is beautiful. And there's different types of curiosity. And I want to talk a little bit about how you can potentially get curious to climb. And I'm going to share a bit of a personal story, because it's not one I'm the most proud of, but it is how I am. The reason why I climbed is because I was a really curious bastard, even though my intentions of the curiosity actually weren't that good. So a little bit of backstory. I'm a really competitive guy. Okay, extremely competitive. And one thing that I always really valued back in the past when I was younger is that I wanted to be better than everyone. Okay, my intentions of climbing was to show my friends how fucking good I was at the game. So they would say, Tim, you're pretty fucking good at the game whenever we would be playing the game, right? So my intentions were purely like egotistical in that sense, but it was a way of me building curiosity because I wanted to prove everyone how good I was at the game, right? That's why I was getting curious and was looking up all these guides and figuring out how stuff worked in the game. And that's how I got myself to a higher rank. This curiosity builds intention. Curiosity builds intention. Now, I know that your story is a bit different. Tell me your story, AJ.
Yeah, I was about to chime in because I love this so much. Is my curiosity manifested completely differently, but got me to the same destination, right? So as a Yasuo OTP, my curiosity was always, okay, my champ has such a high ceiling, but I'm diamond. So what the hell are challenger players doing? Because I feel like I'm pretty damn good already. So unlike Tim, where mine was this intense, like flaming passion to be better than everyone else, mine was, what the hell am I missing? It was like, how much more am I missing on the table? How many more things, small, minute details, could I learn and absorb? How could I master my own gameplay even harder? So that's kind of how I view it. Rather than me being so sick of losing, I was more just like, how can I become such an ultimate master of my own champion for my own sake? Because I just love the progress that much.
Beautiful. So let's uncover the truth about coaching, because there's people watching that are wondering, hey, is it a good idea for me to get coaching, or is it not a good idea? Do I need it? Well, let's figure that out. The truth is, you don't need coaching if you want to climb or improve. Okay, everything is able to be done on the self. You want to see coaching as a bit of a catalyst, as an accelerator, as something that makes it a little bit easier. Remember, right? Repetitions times intention and revision is improvement. You can do this on your own. Absolutely. But if you do that, you need to know how to set learning goals, create intention in your gameplay, and know how to review and visualize new outcomes by finding sources of watching high quality gameplay or good quality educational content, which is going to allow you to fast track the improvement journey yourself. But if you struggle in this part, you're getting the games in, and you're quite struggling to know what you need to do or how to visualize it or how to set learning goals or how to improve, then coaching will absolutely fast track your learning journey. And the way you want to view it is, instead of wasting all your time on the games, you now have a little bit more of a structured process and recognize how to review them. And that's kind of what we do in the academy, right? Is we help you build intention. We help you review so you can learn it yourself. Now, both you and me, right, before we became coaches, sought out coaching ourselves.
Yes.
We didn't just randomly become coaches. So tell me about what made you make that decision.
Okay, yeah, this is such a great story, and I always tell this one because this one will resonate a lot with people, okay? So the thing is, when you don't know what you don't know, you don't even realize that intention and revision is the thing, right? You don't even realize that. So when I was climbing, I was like, what is the point of me getting coaching when all I need to do is get more repetitions in, right? And play more and just understand my champion better. So what happened is I would just keep playing and playing and playing and playing and playing and not go anywhere. But I kept thinking that was the solution. So I never felt like I wanted coaching. And then what happened is that when Yone came out, I accidentally had a lot of intention and revision in my own gameplay because I loved him so much. Like, it was completely subconscious. And that's how I made my breakthrough from Diamond to Challenger. And then what happened is that I played against APA, which, as you guys know, he's one of the best mid laners in NA now. But back then, he wasn't super well known, but he was extremely good. He completely destroyed me so bad that the team I was on, my coach, who wasn't, I'm not going to name names, but he wasn't the most fantastic coach. He told me the same thing. He said, just play more. And so what happened is I lost my intention revision, dropped all the way from 1K LP to 300. And that's why I was like, I can't do this on my own anymore. I need to get coaching. And that's when the 2 and 2 got put together, where I had the repetitions, and then a coach actually consciously gave me that attention and revision to work on, right? And that is how my growth exploded. That's why I completely exploded of a player, and I outscaled all my other Grandmaster and Challenger friends to the point where now I'm 1700 LP, right, with a 60% win rate, playing as pro players and matching them. And that's all because the coaching gave me that specific intention revision that I was lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. To view it in a bit of a different way, right?
Yeah.
Is I'm gonna make it really simple. But if you're like one of these indigenous tribes on like an island in like the middle of the ocean, right? There's one of these indigenous tribes that have zero contact with the rest of the world. They don't know what we got here. They don't know about fucking AI.
Yeah,
they don't know about fucking League of Legends, dude. You don't know what you don't know. So it's basically like being like from those tribes and then getting put into the outside world and experiencing what the world is really like.
Yes.
And the reality is you shouldn't get coaching because you want to be, of course, very intentional with your time. If you resonate with any of these things on the left, and if you reckon, hey, I want to climb and improve on League, then try out coaching right here. And the truth is, if you don't like it, we got a 14-day money-back guarantee. You can always refund, but the program is so good. Me, AJ, Coach Curtis, everyone put their hearts and souls into it. Yep. Yeah, we're like the one-stop shop of improving and climbing in League of Legends. Now, let's go back to all the specifics of climbing in each rank. Now that we know that we need to improve the fundamentals one by one, and we know how to improve a fundamental, which fundamental do you need to focus on? Because there's like a million different fundamentals that you can choose. Well, we're going to go back to the river analogy, right? We're going to find the worst part of our gameplay and set actionable and learning goals to improve them. How do you find the worst part of your gameplay? Well, the easiest way, of course, by getting a coaching session. But if you don't have access to that, you're going to do trend reviewing. What is trend reviewing? You're going to pick 10 of your last games and you're going to go to the key moments, right, where the game control dropped, where shit went bad. And you want to figure out the why. Get curious. Okay, what exactly happened here that we lost control? And by doing that over a multiple set of games, you're not going to have this standout game and that you might gaslight yourself into focusing on the wrong thing, even though it might not be your biggest problem, but you actually see the trends in your gameplay. Another way of doing that is by using your feeling to actually review. A lot of the times, you're very in tune with how you play. When something goes bad, you get frustrated, you get emotional. We're all human, right? We all got emotions. So you can utilize those feelings in the post game to figure out, to go back to those points and then see what is actually going on and get curious. So the goal is to then set actionable learning goals in regards to that fundamental that you want to improve, because you now figured out which fundamental it is through trend reviewing. And then you want to do that for 2 to 3 weeks. On average, it takes about 3 weeks to create a habit. That's why we usually recommend people to get a coaching session every 3 weeks. And you then want to rinse and repeat that. And the truth is that on average, 5 fundamental improvements lead to a level increase of about 200 LP. Every big plateau point is about 200 LPs when a level of play increases. And if you are, for example, currently Emerald 4, right, you're E4, and you climb to E2 by working on your lane, your trading, your warding leaning, and your jungle tracking, then more likely than not, you moving from E2 to Diamond 4 has got to be all of the different fundamentals that you then didn't approach in your E4 to E2 climb. What is your experience with this as a coach and as a player, AJ?
Yeah, so really what I want to focus on is kind of tying everything together that we talked about in terms of intention. So once you use trend reviewing and you use your feelings, right, and you recognize, hey, this is like the specific skill that felt bad that I want to improve on. Now in the game, you play with intention to target that specific feeling, right? So it's like, hey, I felt like in my last 10 games, I was using the R example. I was using my RER randomly in lane, right? That's what it felt like. Now what you're going to do is the next 10 games you're going to play, you're going to intentionally remind yourself, hey, I'm not going to use my R to survive a gank in this game, and I'm going to focus on my warding and leaning. Or, hey, I'm not going to randomly R to chunk this guy, or I'm not going to R for a guaranteed kill. And you're hyper-focusing on your R and when to use your R as a Q, right? And this is how you actually get practical growth, because sometimes people struggle with how do you convert theory into growth. This is how you do it, is what I just described here, is you find something specific, and then you play with a ton of intention on it.
Absolutely.
And for me personally, that's what I've done. I'll give you guys a very obvious example. Last year when I was playing Azir, I wanted to learn like how to have really good like wiggle of movement, and how do I fake my intentions really well? How do I make somebody miss a skill shot on me, or how do I avoid tons of skill shots? So the thing that I intentionally focus on is what I notice is like, hey, when I play Azir, I don't click close enough to my character, right? So this is the exact intentional thing I did for the next 30 games. Only thing I did was I was focusing on how do I click and how do I move my wrist really close to my character. Like that was how intentional I got, to the point where I died 20 times a game because I wasn't focused on anything else. But what happened after that was over is now my clicks were insane. I was dodging fucking everything. I was baiting everything. And so that's the power of intention. The more intentional you are, the more results you're going to get off of that, and the more you're going to build that habit.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I see a lot in coaching sessions as well, especially new players that join the program. Most of the time, they struggle with information gathering on the map. So they have an idea of what the champ wants to do, but they have no clue what the baseline of macro is. And it's, of course, gathering information around neutral objectives. So a specific learning objective that I give them very often is every single time that you come from base, ask yourself the question, what the next neutral objective is, and see if you can play for it. Okay? And if you do this for 3 weeks straight, just every single deployment, and you review your deployments, right? If you actually pinged and communicated and had intention on the plays, these players, they're coming back in 3 weeks saying, I have the feeling like the fog has been lifted. Like, I finally know, at least to a baseline, what to do. And we can use that then as a cornerstone to then build up the rest of the improvement from that. It's beautiful how improvement works. And usually 3 weeks to create a habit, 5 fundamentals, and then you climb, guys. So we're moving on to one of my favorite things that happen whenever you start climbing in League of Legends. And we're going to talk about the dip and the mental pie. And AJ already mentioned in his previous example where he was learning to have better micro on his champion. What happens is that the first few games, you just start losing everything because you're so focused on a specific learning objective. And a lot of players get so scared here. And it's actually really, really, really sad, because whenever you learn something, whenever you learn a new skill, this is what your mental energy looks like in the game. And we have to respect the mental energy, because we can't just create an extra 10% to focus on, for example, your movement here, right? This movement is going to be 40%, but it's not good enough. So we need to up this, if we want to make it a habit, to like 60 or 70% for our movement to become good. Now, what happens with the other fundamentals like threat assessment or warding and leaning or jungle tracking, right? They just evaporate because all of your mental energy is now put on movement. Now, how does this eventually work, right? By doing this over time, the amount of mental energy that you need to spend on movement to get that same level actually decreases. So to get that good movement, you initially, week 1, you need to spend 70% of it on the movement. Week 2, that is already only 60%. Week 3, right, we're now getting back towards like 50% of your mental stack. And week 4, we're back to 40. We can reintroduce the other concepts, but now we've just improved a part of our gameplay without spending extra mental energy onto it, which then allows us to improve. And this initial point where you spend so much mental energy on that one fundamental, you will lose LP. And man, there's so many people in the coaching program. And I totally understand it, because I've been there myself as well, right? Where they start losing a few games and they think, oh, the learning objective, it's not working. Fuck, I need to change. And we're talking theory overload, learning objectives, hopping, skipping. They leave the river, go back to the river analogy, unclogged, and then you just drop harder than you've ever had before. You got to trust the process and get through the dip. What do you think of this, AJ? How have you experienced this in your coaching?
Yeah, so I've experienced that both in my coaching and in my personal play. In coaching, well, what I noticed is that they get this initial high. They get this initial spike for like 3 or 4 games because they're playing on cloud 9, realizing, oh, I have something to focus on. So they're playing at like 120%, if that makes sense. It's like they're using all their brain energy, and they have a spike, and then that spike is supplemented by even bigger dips. So now they're not only did they lose the LP they just gained, they're losing more than what they started at before they had coaching, right? And so this scares a lot of people, because No, like you said, they're like, oh, it's not working, or oh, I'm losing so much LP, or I'm flocked. But what you guys need to understand, and what I tell them, is that you need to have faith and the fact that it will go back up, because your brain will naturally accumulate that information, right? In terms of the learning objective you're setting, and it will naturally ease off on it slowly over time, right? Like Tim said, it's going to go from 70% of your clicking to it's naturally going to go down to 60%, and then 50%, and then 40% without you trying to put effort on changing it. And so what I would recommend you guys to do is don't focus on trying to change it. Let it naturally impact you and slowly go away on its own as you get more natural and as you build the habit.
Yeah, that's right. And it's actually sad, because imagine if you're just a player trying to climb and you've never heard of any of this, right? You just don't know how this works. And you're trying to watch educational content. You see, I don't know who made the video, but you see a random content creator say, you need to focus more on your farming. And you focus on your farming and it goes well. You're reaching like this 9-10 CS per minute. And then suddenly you start fucking losing everything and you don't know what's going on. And it makes you insecure. You lose all of this LP. So you instantly move away from that thing that you were trying to do, because you don't know if it's going to work. And then you ride back at ground zero, but you're maybe even lower. It fucks with your confidence. And the truth is, that's why a lot of people are actually stuck, is because they don't know how to. They don't understand the process behind improvement, and it's a sad thing, really. I understand why a lot of people are therefore not able to achieve their goals, because it is challenging. There's a lot of noise and narratives that can fuck up your progress.
Yeah, and what I would say, just to add on, so I could resonate, because it's not intuitive, right? Like, let's take something else that's difficult in real life. Like, let's take going to the gym, right? Being consistent in the gym is one of the hardest fucking things anyone can do. I can't even be consistent, if I'm going to be brutally honest. And think about how much more feedback you get right away when you go to the gym. If you lift heavy and you go to your max for 2 weeks straight, you're going to see the results. So now imagine something as abstract as a video game and you don't see the results. And in fact, the results are actually negative. Think about how hard that is to maintain your composure and trust in it, right? So I can definitely empathize with that. But this is one of those things where you have to, I wouldn't say fake it till you make it, but trust in the people that have went before you, right? Trust in the people who've led the path for you, who've already rode that path, and just trust in that and have faith in it.
So when it comes to improvement isn't linear in League of Legends, like we already mentioned, but there's another catch. Improvement is also not visual in the instant, because of the fact that a lot of games are just going to be lost, and it doesn't really seem like you're getting better or making progress, because maybe you were in a position where your teammates lost you the game. And that means that the feedback that you're receiving from certain games might sometimes be false negative in a way. And a lot of people really struggle with this. So we have to basically accept that losing is going to be a part of the process. And we're going to need to understand that losing or winning games in the short term is not something that we can specify if we're doing something well or bad. So we got to start learning how to focus on our actual gameplay and visualize what good gameplay looks like, instead of looking at the outcome of a game. What's your experience with this, AJ?
Yeah, I love what you said then, just to expand on that. Losing and winning is not, as crazy as it sounds, it's not an indicator of how well you're performing or how much you're improving, right, in the short term. Because there's a guy who bought an Iron account, a challenger account on Iron. He won 10% of his games.
Not bad.
Yeah. So think about that. That means that a certain percentage of your games in the short term have nothing to do with you at all, right? That's just the reality. And so tying it back to that river analogy we started with is, in order to see improvement, it comes from a long period of pattern changing on specific skills, and multiple specific skills. So what do I mean by that, right? Maybe you improve your trading and your LP doesn't go, maybe your LP goes down or stays the same or fluctuates, and then that clears out one debris, and then you improve your mid-game macro or your champion master, yada, 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 and then you will see the improvement. So it's not about the short-term loss, it's about what patterns you recognize in your own gameplay over a long period of time.
Exactly. And the way that we can start shifting our focus from the LP onto the skill and the gameplay is by feeling and seeing yourself improve. It's like the moment you see the light, you can take the step and get there. So the way that we're going to structure this specific slide is we're going to talk through our experiences of how did we get to see the light. For me personally, it's actually a really, really, really funny story because I was actually a toxic motherfucker in the past. I already shared like that I was very much trying to be better than everyone else. So if something didn't go well in the game where I would lose, I would feel hurt in my ego because I would feel worse as a person because now people would value me less as a player. So me dropping down an LP would make me sad. Me going up an LP would make me happy, right? Because my ego was tied to my rank. Now, this got to the point where I was stuck in Diamond for a very, very, very long time. And I remember that I eventually, at the last year when I was stuck in Diamond, I joined a team. Just a really amateur team, like just for fun. Now, praise the gods, because that team, as bad as the team was, had an insanely good coach. And that coach wasn't necessarily a league-specific coach, but it was more of a mindset-specific coach. And we did individual sessions. And while we were doing the individual sessions, he was spectating me. And I was just going off, dude. I was toxic, flaming my teammates, blaming externals. And I was doing all the bad shit that could happen. And I was having a really tough game. Right, like one of the worst games that you could get because my teammates were struggling. I was like 18 and 2, and I was trying to carry the team. And what happens is that one of my teammates made the game-losing mistake at minute 14 in the game, and I was just out. I was so frustrated. And my coach was just spectating and he was watching me. And 3 weeks before that, we set some learning goals of stuff what to work on. He was watching me play. And after the game, after I did my ranting and my flaming and my toxicity, he said, "This was the best game, Tim, that you've played ever." And me, as a very rank-oriented player that was so focusing on the LP, didn't understand what he mean with that. I was like, okay, what do you mean with that? I was like cooled down at that point. And he said, well, in this game, you've done something that I've never seen you done before in this mid-game sequence here and this and this and this. So that means you've improved. And therefore, it's the best game that you've ever played. Now, at an instance, when someone's saying that to you, right, it doesn't immediately strike. You need to see it. You need to feel it. So when I started focusing on that on the other games, I was actually recognized, hey, this is indeed something that I could not have done 3 weeks ago. And that's when it starts clicking, and maybe not instantly seeing in the rank, but hey, I just did something that I couldn't do before. I understand. I'm not stupid, right? I might be a toxic guy, but I'm not stupid. I understand what improvement feels like. And this gave me a bit of hope. It gave me a feeling, okay, this is something I can latch onto. Now, when I started applying this on the next thing, which would be my ability usage and my trading in the lane, especially timing it with last hits, I made it visual. I set specific learning goals together with my coach. And guess what happened? In a few months later, I started comparing my gameplay to the gameplay that I had before, and I started seeing the vast amount of difference. I was like, holy shit. The rank was the same, but I literally got so much better. And I did this for a few more weeks, and suddenly I showed up from the D2 to Grandmaster instantly. Just immediate improvement. And I didn't even play a Master tier, dude. I just showed up immediately to Grandmaster because all of this improvement compounded, and suddenly it led to me climbing and improving. And from that point onwards, you can start making that process towards the improvement-oriented mindset because you know what it feels like. You know how to do it, and all you need to do is just replicate it. How about you, AJ?
Yeah, so mine is again, same result, but different background. So for me, your toxicity was outward, right? You would project
so outward. Now, so outward, dude.
So mine was the inverse. Mine was all inward. Okay. So every time, I was Yasuo OTP for 8 years. So imagine the expectations on yourself as Yasuo OTP on like year 6 or 7. every little mistake, I'm so stuck on it. I'll make like one EQ flash mistake, and I'll sit there for 5 minutes during the game, beating myself up for it. I'm not even present in that current game. So I would beat myself up for every single little mistake, and every single loss, I thought of it as a quote unquote failure attack on my personal being. Like, I am a personal failure. It's like, what the fuck? I'm a 6-year Yasuo OTP. I can't do this. I can't win this game. I suck. I'm terrible. And so every single game I lost felt like a little piece of my ego was getting cut. Like, it was like I'm on the chopping block, and every single little piece is getting cut and cut and cut. And the thing is every win would only recuperate a little bit, right? Because it'd be like, I would say to myself again, oh, well, I won this game, but that's just because I'm a Yasuo. Like, this guy just doesn't know how to play as Yasuo. Like, I would undermine my own value. And so what would happen is that, again, I wouldn't look at like long-term improvement. I was thinking very much in the short term inwardly. I was super toxic to myself. And so what happened is something magical happened, right? Yone came out. And so I took a break from League for like 6 or 7 months. And then when Yone came back, I was like, wait, people are saying he's like Yasuo. I'm going to try him out. And what happened is I stopped attaching a win as a success and a loss as a failure. I was just playing to play the fucking game. I was just playing to get better at my champ. I stopped being so inwardly toxic to myself because I was having so much fun playing Yone. I no longer had these toxic expectations of what a good Yasuo game should look like or what a good game for me should look like. And I started playing just free flow and not caring about if I lost in the short term or won in the short term. Just be like, you know what? I'm having so much fun. Like, what is Faker doing with Yone? What's Faker Arlok? I remember watching, this is when I was still watching Midbeast. Midbeast had some Yone Faker tech where Faker would like R over a wall and misses R and then Gale Force on them. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? I want to learn how to do that, right? And I had the same experience. I shot from that season, I started plat 2, 31% win rate. I shot from that elo to challenger in a month.
Crazy.
Because all I cared about was how do I keep getting better Yone? I don't give a fuck if I lose. I literally could not give less of a shit because I was having so much fun playing the champ.
Yeah. So it was just purely your curiosity that allowed you to get into that improvement-oriented mindset.
Yeah. And then the juxtaposition is that my curiosity on the Yasuo became toxic. That's the thing. Right. It was toxic curiosity. I was beating myself up, calling myself a failure. Whereas that wasn't happening. I was learning a new champ because I gave myself permission to win or lose, and that wasn't a success or a failure. That was just the game. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's break down these. You got these outwards perspectives, you got these inwards perspectives, and everyone is either in one of these two categories here, right?
Yeah.
And what I want you to understand is if you are currently in a fixed rank LP oriented mindset, if you are feeling bad after a loss instead of looking at your own gameplay and feeling bad about how you performed. So if the loss is what frustrates you, that's where you're an outward oriented problem. Yes. When you genuinely think your team is holding you back, when you genuinely believe that, I believe that, dude. I was crying after my games because my fucking support ran me down, dude. I added people after the game. I spread some evil in this world when I was younger, dude.
Yeah.
I did some bad shit, man. I got so mad, and I genuinely can just view it still like yesterday. I genuinely believe that the system was against me. That is when you're in these, you're focused on the LP, because it's so hard for you to visualize the improvement. That's when you really got to take this to mind and start looking at your individual pieces of gameplay. What advice would you have for someone that's doing the opposite and beating themselves over?
Yeah, so the way you recognize it's inward is like you just said, is when you're beating yourself up. Where like if you're a player that like holds on to one of your mistakes for like 2 or 3 minutes, that's inward. Or if you're like someone that talks really poorly about yourself to yourself, right? That's inward. That's all internal, right? The external factor is influencing you internally. And so my advice is, number one, not to take yourself so seriously. Now I know this isn't specific to league advice, but it's like learn. This is my number one advice. Figure out what was fun about the game that you've lost, because you've lost that in transition. You've lost that fun about the game that's made you like just enjoy and been really passionate about getting better, and you've gotten too stuck on like how do I perform or how do I execute based off of my internal projections on how good I should be. So let go of those internal projections and play just for the sake of playing. play for the love of the game. As much as as cliche as that is like play just to fucking enjoy playing also. Play to enjoy doing those shovels on Azir. Ignite that passion again, and then you won't beat yourself up so much anymore because you're just playing to enjoy it. And the improvement, because you're an inward person, will come because you will reflect in a more positive light naturally.
Exactly, because you focus on yourself, it will come automatically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Love that. So let's talk about an experience as the coach, right? I reckon that about 70% of players are like outward focused, and about 30% of the players are like a little bit more inward focused.
Yeah, even 80-20, yeah.
80-20 even?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you recognize any region differences? Because I reckon that a lot of EU West players are outward focused. It's very much...
They're way more outward, yeah.
Yes, and NA is a bit more inward, huh?
Yeah, and I think it was champion specific too, yeah. So, like, I'll give you an example, right? Yeah. Not to call him out, but there's an Emerald Azir player that I was working with. He's very inward, and it's the region, being in NA, right? We're a lot more, how do I say?
Calm. Less ego.
Yeah, because just the way we grow up is about just about that, right? Just the culture, right? But then also the champion he's playing. It's like when you play Azir, you know that Azir, you're doing stuff wrong as Azir no matter what. No matter how delusional you are, you know for a fact that you're fucking something up when you're playing Azir, right? Like no one's playing Azir not thinking that. So I think it's that combination is like you can tell he is more inward. Whereas like if you're like, what's a champ that could be really outward focused?
Assassins.
Something that's like, like an assassin.
Assassin
player.
Like
you play like in a fairy, right? And you like kill their backline and you still lose, right? It's very easy to be outward focused in that situation, right?
Yeah. Correct. It's generally your character as a person more than... And your character also shapes your champion choice, dude.
That as well.
It interlinks. Yeah.
Yes, that's the key. Yeah.
Interlinks. So you've got some food for thought, guys, in regards to focusing on the improvements and the gameplay instead of the LP.
All right, so now we'll be talking about the growth mindset and specifically the errors that people have when they're trying to take improvement seriously, especially when they're first starting. So a lot of people struggle with improving due to the language that they say to themselves. So I'll give you a very clear-cut, practical example, right? What will happen is, let's say you're in E4 and you play against an E2 level player and you lose lane, right? The language you're usually going to say to yourself is, oh, this guy just laned better than me. The problem with this is that this doesn't allow any actionable steps to improve your lane. It's too vague and it's too broad and it's not, you can't target any skills. So compare that to something like, oh, this Syndra player was way better at playing mage versus mage and timing trading around my last hits. I kept getting queued on last hits. Think about how much more room that is intuitively for you to have an actionable and targeted growth. Right now in the next game, you could target that. It's like, you know what? Next time I play this matchup, I'm going to focus on making sure I try to time my cues with her last hits, right? And so this is a trap people can fall into, and then being way more targeted helps a lot. And the second thing I notice is with willpower. What I mean by this is that a lot of people eat and suck up the fun out of their gameplay. They start to get to the point where it becomes a chore. It becomes a routine to improve at the game. It's like, I'm just going to maximize my learning. I'm going to study all this crap. I'm going to be constantly listening to podcasts. I'm going to be watching YouTube videos, much like the one you're listening to right now. And you're going to put so much effort in trying to get better. It's actually going to ironically backfire and lead to less growth because you're so stuck and so negative and you're just not going to be having fun anymore. Right. Yeah. And so the key is to just have more fun. And Tim, what's your experience with this? What have you had any students or you personally have any errors with this?
Yeah, look, it's a very interesting way of putting it because this is a very inward way of putting it, right? This is through your experience because this is if you are already trying to have the growth mindset. This is great way of approaching it. But what I also find is that there's just so many people that if we go back to that previous slide, they just don't have this growth mindset to begin with. And if you don't understand how to be in that position to begin with, it's so hard to resonate with what's with these errors here or understand what even are growth mindset errors. So I would have really specified that if you guys are trying to have the growth mindset, because there's also people watching that are like fuck that shit, this woo-woo shit. I need some fucking laning strategies, dude. Tim, where's the laning shit, man? That's what I'm subscribed for. Not this shit. No, this is for the people trying to have that growth mindset. But it's also like the realities of growth mindset and the good part of it. So elaborate a little bit more on that, AJ.
Yeah, so what it really starts with, what resonated with me, again, tying back to that Yone example, it starts with fun. Go back to what pulled you to playing the damn game of League of Legends, right? What was fun about the champions you play or your journey, right? Because by going back to what's fun, you will, especially if you're an inward growth person, you have this growth, right? This will enable the curiosity, and what's key is it's effortless. You don't have to put in effort or willpower to get the games in to play with intention. It will happen naturally. It will happen as a byproduct of having fun, right? The second thing you guys need to understand about growth mindset, the reality of it, is that's a marathon, not a sprint. Like we talked about, the short term, and same thing with the river analogy, it's not about the short term, it's about clearing out the debris. It's about long term, many, many months. And it's not about how fast can you sprint, how fast can you gain 300 LP. That's not what it's about. And one quote I really love that a fellow MLA student has shared with me that's from Pantheon that I always use now is, because I fall, the climb must be the destination. So fucking powerful, right? It's not about getting, like for me personally, it wasn't about getting Challenger. It was about the slog and the growth of going through Grandmaster, sitting in Grandmaster, going back down to Master, going back down to GM, to the point that when I hit Challenger, I wasn't even that excited because I knew that it was only a matter of time, right? Because the climb itself was where I needed to be already.
Yeah, beautiful.
And
yeah, so I'd like to say one thing, right? Is that,
of course,
the first time I reached Challenger, you know what happened to me? I burned out for 3 months. I couldn't play the game.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was all outward. I reached my goal.
Yeah.
And now what? What's next? Rank 1? Well, I didn't care about rank 1. Everything was gone. The climb wasn't my destination. My destination was the end goal, the outward way of putting it. So I had to learn, after I first reached Challenger, I was 3 months later, I started playing the game again. I was stuck in GM for a while. Then I got stuck in Master for a year before I was actually, in that second time when I made the climb, that's when I actually got it with a growth mindset. And that's when I started learning this. And that's when I actually eventually got Challenger and became an actual Challenger level player instead of just reaching it once. A really interesting, it's such a different experience that we had climbing the ladder. Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to talk about this fearful state, right? Yeah. Fear. What does fear do in regards to your climb?
Yeah. So really what fear is it's your brain avoiding danger, right? This just goes back to, our biology, right? You can't avoid biology. And so it's very hard to overcome fear, but what happens, the way fear manifests in the game is like, if you're scared of losing a game, you're going to attract those losses, as crazy as that sounds, because you're going to subconsciously play in a fearful state. You're going to make decisions you wouldn't normally make in a rational situation. You're going to look back at your gameplay and be like, what the fuck, why did I do that? Because you're playing based off of scaredness. You're on fight or flight mode, right? It's like again, to compare it to our biology, if you're in the woods trying to survive a tiger, your fear is meant for that quick burst to quickly change your decision-making, not necessarily to optimize decision-making, but just to freaking survive. So imagine when that happens, when you're playing a video game, right? Or a skill that you want to improve on, your fear is going to completely block you. So what you got to do is you're allowed to be frustrated over games, but you want to make sure you're not playing a game fearful of losing, right? Get in there and embrace the fact that you might lose, embrace the suck, and be okay with losing and not being in a fearful state, because that will allow you to make intentional, going back to what we're talking about, intentional decisions.
Yeah. There's a lot of players in our program that are getting close towards their ranked goal. Okay, very close, like 3-4 games away, and they send us a message and they're like, "Tim, AJ, I'm scared to play because what if I lose? I'm getting 1 game further away from my goal." And I've been there myself as well. At the moment I was 1 game away from Challenger, I was shaking, like sweating when I was queuing up, and it's very interesting because you need to also learn to be courageous in a situation like that, because the only way that you're going to be improving, guys, is by just pressing the queue up button and being okay with losing in a situation like this. Just lose the game. Just lose.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And,
lose but learn.
Yeah. What I would add with that is like when somebody says, I'm scared, I'm 4 games away, I'm scared. This is what I tell them. I said, imagine I could give you a pill right now, and in 30 days, you are guaranteed to be that rank you wanted to be at. But day 1 to 29, you might go down 700 LP. And I would tell them, hey, would you take that pill? Every single person has said yes.
I would say yes.
Why? Yeah, because guess what? That question removes the fear, right? Because I'm posing the question, what if it's guaranteed? What if you're not fearful of not getting what you want, but it's guaranteed, right? You will go through hell and back. You'll lose 1K LP to go to the rank you want to be at if you're guaranteed in 30 days, right?
Yeah.
And so this is how powerful both fear and overcoming your fear has in getting what you want, right?
Love it.
So that's very, very, very important.
In the end, guys, if you have a growth mindset, a healthy growth mindset, you can achieve everything. And as a little bit of a life coach, something I want to say as well is because I've learned a lot about myself through League of Legends. I learned to embrace the growth mindset. And not only has this helped me in climbing in League, it's also helped me climbing in life. And I've turned my passion and my competition for League into something that, just helped every single part of my life in regards to me being able to learn anything, me being able to be more happy with myself. And having a growth mindset is it's the key to life in the end, man. Mm-hmm. It's the key to curiosity and achieving what you want in your life. Why your champion pool is holding you back? Well, let's just start with a fact. 40%, if not more, at minimum 40% of the players joining our coaching academy have a champion pool that is actively sabotaging their climb. What are examples? Too large of a pool, complexity, playing the big boy champs while they're not at the level where they can play that. And the reason why that's the case is because whenever you're queuing up for a game and you're trying to learn something, you're learning either one of two things. You're learning champion mastery, which is one, or you're learning the game fundamentals. And this totally depends on your level of mastery on the champion, because go back to the mental pie, right? If you're new on a champion, what happens is that a lot of your mental energy is focused on the champion, and you can't then focus on the game fundamentals because it's occupied by the champion. So if you have a too large of a champion pool, these are players that will just inevitably always be stuck. They're hard stuck. They can't improve because they don't understand how to learn the champion through the game. They don't understand how to learn the game through the champion mastery, and therefore they can't focus on the fundamentals themselves. What is your experience with players in the coaching program, AJ?
Yeah, so I just want to be blunt because I think it's important as a coach not to sugarcoat things. What I noticed all is the illusion that you're good enough to play these champs, or delusion of grandeur. So what I mean by that, and again, I'm saying this nicely, is that people believe they can tackle more than they actually can at that current moment. So just to give an arbitrary example, maybe somebody in the MLA will join and be like, hey, I can play we'll ask what's their champ pool? And they're like, hey, I can play Azir, Ori, Yone, Akali, Zed, right? And they're like Emerald 2 or Plat 2 or something, right? And it's like, my first initial reaction is like, no, you can't, right? And the reason why you can't is, like you said, champion mastery is a finite resource, right? You only have a finite amount of games that you could play, right? Even if you spam a lot. So it's like there's no possible way for you to develop all that champion mastery and develop your game fundamentals. And so that's why they're stuck. As they cut down, 80% of their pool and played only one complex champ, then their champion mastery would skyrocket and their game fundamentals would skyrocket as a result.
Yeah. And I'm going to call this the Z effect. Now, for players playing in a different role, you all have your individual champs. Maybe Ezreal on bot lane. Maybe got Graves or Nidalee in jungle. Jace on top. Yeah. What's AD carry? What's support? Support's fucking easy, let's be honest. Come on. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about support, really. But the truth is, there's those champs that are just hard as fuck. And in my experience as a coach, I don't think I've ever seen someone climb on Z, genuinely climb on Z, consistently. It's the champ's too hard. It takes too many games. The micro, the reference points of the champion. What are reference points? It's the consistency of how the champion plays the macro.
Yep.
If it's all over the place, it's going to be really hard for you to learn the game fundamentals. It's much easier for you to learn the game first and then swap to a different champion. Because if your fundamental understanding is there, look at fucking Faker. He can learn the new champion. He learned Mel in 5 games, dude. 5 games he can play Mel. So that's the mindset. Now, we're going to cover per rank specifically how to structure your champion pool. And in the description, we also will be linking a champion pool size calculator. If you want to just do a quick calculation, check it out. But we're also going to discuss it specifically in the ranks. And that's what we're going to move on to right now. So stay tuned for that. So the first bucket of ranks that we're going to be covering is the ranks unranked to gold. The reason we've combined these together is because a lot of the players in these elo ranges have very similar tendencies, very similar problems, and we're going to be addressing that in this first slide. Then we're going to talk about common mistakes, review tips, everything that you need to climb in this elo bracket. Starting off, this stage of your league journey is all about mastering your champion. Keep it simple. Don't get all crazy and think about tempo and stuff like that. Just how do I win on the champion that I play? Get really good at understanding the reference points, the identity of your champion. And if you can master that, you should be able to get to the next level, which would be the higher levels of gold. The specifics we're going to be covering. What do you see on average the most frequently in unranked gold players, AJ?
Yes, and one thing I'll say before I talk about it is that I've been browsing a lot of different league discords to see what the average players do, and a lot of players in unranked to gold, right? They play way too many champions. That's the biggest thing I see. Way too many champs. I had a silver guy come in and ask me, he's like, I don't know how to win games, and I'm like, okay, what are you playing? He's a mid laner. He's like, oh, I just counter pick my matchup every game. And that gave me so many red flags. It's not about counter picks, tempo, like you said. It's just about how do you play your champion at each point in the game, right? That's the key.
Yep. Exactly. Which instantly leads to what should your champion pool size be if you're in this elo range? 1 to max 2 champs. And I've crushed some players' worlds here. Some people is going to be watching right now. It's going to be, but I get bored. I can't. I can't play 1 or 2 champions. That's extremely boring. Great. If that's you, then you need to seriously consider, do you want to climb or not? Right? This video is titled How to Climb at Each Rank. If you want to climb at this elo range, you need to master your champion. And that means that we need to lower our champs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, to give an analogy, that's like saying you want to become a doctor, but you don't study your medical exams, you don't do your residency. You know, you just have you have to do it. You know, like there's no going around it. There's no going around it.
We're not sugarcoating here things here, guys. I'm sorry. It's just the truth. Yeah. So complexity also matters. And I'm going to crush even more worlds. Yeah. This means we cannot play shit like Zed, Riven, all these Zeri bot. No, don't touch all of these hard champs, guys. You need to have simple champs with clear reference points and micro that is manageable. The harder your champion is in the mechanical execution, the more different things it can do on the map, the harder it is to get consistent, the harder it is to understand and to master your champion and get to the next level. Playing those big boy champs is something that will come later. Put down your ego, play a champ that's maybe a little bit less fun or stylish or outplay potential, but try to see the fun in a different aspect. What a lot of people think when it comes to fun is outplaying people or solo killing people. Yeah. You know what can also be really fun? Going 10 CS per minute every single game and just seeing that CS gap between you and the enemy laner. Or being first at the neutral objective and getting these good team fights, or just understanding what you need to do and just executing upon it. It's like giving yourself a grade. Those are other ways to have fun in these type of positions. Yeah. Anything you want to add to this?
Simply just winning. Yeah, simply just winning more games, I think, is more fun for the majority of the player base, right? Like I was playing a bit of Neferi just for fun. Yeah. And she's a simple chat, but she's a lot of fun. There's a lot of things you can do on Neferi, right? Like knowing when to go in and stuff. So there's a lot of complexity, even to simple champs, just by the nature of the game, guys. So don't think you're like going on training wheels by playing like a simple champ, right? Even though there are some training wheels as champions, don't feel like you're missing out on anything, right? There's so much complexity to the game that is like hidden, right? That you'll discover and uncover as you get better at the game.
Absolutely. So, ability usage, big theme here. Because this stage of your league journey is all about mastering your champion, you need to understand how to use your spells. I had a review not too long ago with a Mel player that is hovering around these ranks here, towards the higher parts of it. And they played, I think, like 30, 40 Mel games. And what I saw is that they just didn't understand when to use their spells and how to use their spells. The cues that the game gives you to throw your spells, they didn't understand. So what did they not understand? Timing their cues with last hits. It might sound very simple, but if you can get consistent and get good at this and understand how this works, same as take, for example, your Neferi example, then suddenly you become so much more effective. Very simple, very effective. Anything you want to add to ability usage?
Yeah, I'll talk about it from the melee perspective, right?
Yeah.
So in Neferi, right? Sometimes people struggle with ability usage in terms of, which target do I want to go on? I'm sure we'll cover that later, but it's like, you don't have to burn Neferi R on a tank, right? Or you don't have to burn your W to maximize your damage output. So understanding your damage in reference to your ability usage if you play melee champ is very, very, very important.
Love it. So we talked about it already. Champion reference points. What does this actually mean? Think about it as the North Star, your guiding light of wherever you want to go. We're just going to take a champion as an example and throw out the reference points right here. We're going to use it for a mid champ, but we could basically be taking any champ. We're going to take Victor. What does Victor wants to do? Victor wants to take control in the lane by taking good quality traits around his cooldowns. He wants to take small win-oriented traits where he's going to hit the enemies without getting hit in return. Post E-upgrade, he wants to play for lane control and for priority, and he wants to always move first to place. And whenever a fight happens in the mid-game, usually around neutral objectives, he wants to be first and let the enemies run towards him, because then he can use his zone control tools to make it hard for the enemies to enter. You see, that was just the playbook of Victor. Now everyone can play Victor now. As long as you just keep those things in mind.
You know what to look for.
You know what to look for. Exactly. Feel free to give an example of a melee champ.
Yeah, sure. Let's take Echo, for example, right?
Echo.
So what does Echo want to do, right? So Echo, let's assume you're taking Hail Blades, right? Which I believe is the standard, right? Yep. So what you want to do is use your early game Hail Blades pressure to get some sort of lane control, right? Play for your Wave Clear Spike, which is level 7, right? Yep. Ideally get to your first reset, and then you can start to skirmish, right? Come from flanks, right? And then in the mid game, you play in the side lane, and then during neutral objectives, you try to contest from the side, right? Those would be the quick reference points for Echo. Boom. Now you have a very clear idea about how you should be navigating Echo in a particular game.
Exactly. So what you need to do is you need to figure out which champ you want to play, find out these reference points. There's many ways to find it out. We give them out in our coaching program. You can find them online, probably on a guide. There's many ways to just get it. You can even figure it out yourself, right? Or add in high elo main. Figure out your reference points and then get consistent in that regard. This now gives us a bit of this direction to understand which plays are going to be good and which plays are going to be bad. And this is the big question mark in this unranked to gold elo range, is that a lot of players, they just throw shit at the wall and they don't know what's supposed to what's supposed to stick and what's supposed to drop. So they don't understand what's correct and what's wrong. So they just kind of make the plays and they don't learn because the feedback loop is not there, because they don't know what's good and what's bad. Yeah. So knowing your reference points, you can now understand what are good plays and what are bad plays for your champion. And if you then take this to the next level and you say no to the bad plays and you can build intention, you're going to be out of gold within a couple of months. Immediately.
Yeah, it's immediately platinum. Right? That's what I always say. Every single review I start with anyone from Unranked to Gold 4, even to Gold 1 up until that point. The first thing I tell them is mastery over your reference points. If you master your reference points, that's platinum, just like that. Instantly.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah. Fun story, actually. I did a review with a Malzar player, and she was in Silver 2 when we started. Mm-hmm. Right? This is all over the span of 4 weeks. We did 2 reviews in 2 weeks. And she was Silver 4, So I talked about information gathering and what to do after you get to your red clear breakpoint as Malzar. Reference points, thinking. Next session, she was gold 2. Next session, she was plat 4.
Yeah.
4 weeks. Insane. She understood the reference points. She knew what to think. Bam, immediate plat 4.
Yep.
Of course, we're then getting to a new wall, but we'll cover that in the next section here.
Yep.
So, not only do you need to understand what your champion wants to do and really mastering your champion, the game is large. Many different characters. You need to also understand what each champion does as a basic level. You don't need to understand their reference points or what they exactly want to do or how they function. Just more or less, okay, how does their spell work, right? When are we in kill threat? When are we safe? The basics.
Yep.
What do you think about this?
So one thing that especially on the lower end, so like the iron, unranked, and bronze, is I really like to group champions and buckets to make it very clear for them. So it's like, I think there was a student that had a question about Ari versus Zerath yesterday, right?
Yep.
So obviously, as an iron player, it's going to be extremely overwhelming. So what I did is I bucketed it. I was like, okay, against Zerath, Vel'Koz, Ziggs, Mel, these champions are very good at poking you out in lane and very vulnerable to ganks. So you want to try to set up ganks. That's one of Ari's reference points, right? But I like to giving yourself some categories and buckets at this earlier ranks can make it a lot easier to navigate all these champions. It's like, okay, I'm against Vel'Koz. I'm going to think about Vel'Koz similarly to if I think about Zerath, right? If I think about Ziggs. That way you can have a little bit of an easier time digesting all that information.
Love that. Really good. So, Lil State. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss. And in the Unranked 2 gold bucket, this is where a lot of people don't even know what this is. So Lil State is a moment in the game where we are on downtime. Okay, so this is when we're walking from base to lane, in between minion waves, when we have a lot of time to think, when we're dead. Amazing Lil State. Whenever you're shopping, whenever you're walking from lane to lane, these are the bigger Lil States in the game. This is the timing where a lot of people switch song.
Yes, I'll tab,
watch Netflix on the side.
Yeah.
Chat with the boys on Discord, you know.
Yeah, Discord, yes.
That's fine. If that's what you want to do, great. But we're not climbing in that case because we need to utilize this time to make a strategy about what we want to do next and especially align that with our reference points. This downtime is the most important time in League of Legends because it's going to allow you to think. And if you use that time and the enemies don't use that time, you already have an edge and you're going to win.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about neutral objectives. In this ELO bracket, everything is about the neutral objectives.
Correct.
So tempo, side lane, and complicated macro is just not at play here. It's not important because a lot of people just ARAM, they're on mid, fighting, and if you can stack up dragons, you're automatically going to win up the game. It's a lot of ARAM and fights. So what you need to do if you're in this ELO range, what I expect from you is that you can ask yourself the question, what's the next objective in these Lil States? And that you can then ping it as a form of awareness, what you want to do, as a form of ability to communicate with your team so they also know what to do. Keep in mind that a simple ping, especially in lower ranks, a bit of direction is everything that you need to get your team aligned. And this is going to automatically just let you and your team be at the upper hand over the enemy team because they're not doing that. What do you think of this?
Yeah, so I'll start with a few things. So one, Lil States, just to kind of elaborate even more, is basically, like you said, it's downtime, but it's where you're bringing information to the front cortex of your brain, right? So a lot of people play with intuition, right? Hence why you can be on Discord, listen to music, change song, all tap, and still play League, because it's intuition. That's your subconscious navigating the game. What you should be doing in a lull state, so there's downtime, is you think about information, you bring that to the front of your mind. So it's like, okay, I press tab, I see dragons up. I'm going to actively, in my front of my mind, ping where I want everyone to be. That would be an example of how you use a lull state in regards to neutral objectives, for example. And piggybacking off the pings, because you probably feel like as an iron or solo player, you get heavily influenced by your teammates, right? I hear a lot of people say, what if they don't listen to your pings? Well, think about how influenced you get by your team already. Probably all your peers get influenced just as much as you do. So your ping and communication goes a long, long way, much more than you think, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna even put it out there. The players in this Elo bracket, they're so lost. They are begging for someone to take the lead.
They need some direction. Yeah,
They're
like please,
begging.
somebody lead. Yes.
Please, someone tell me what to do.
Yes. 100%.
So you can be that. You can be the communication messiah. You can tell them. You can show them the way. Show them the light.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Love it.
So there's one clear distinction we need to make. The newer league players in this Edo bracket versus the longer term unranked to gold players. Because there's quite a big difference to how these players experience the same Elo range.
Yes.
Now, I want you to start and tell me about your experience with both these groups.
Yeah, so this is a tough one because there's a lot of nuance here, right? So I'll start with the someone who's been a long-term player, right? Yep. Typically, someone who's a long-term player has this kind of burden of knowledge sense where they feel like they know a lot about the game, and so they end up overcomplicating the game, right? I actually had a review with a student. I won't specify who it is, but he was way overcomplicating the game, way too much in gold, like way too much, right? And like they're probably pretty good mechanically, and they know what all the champs do, but their reference points at low state usage just is out of the water. Yeah. And the biggest thing is their narratives are through the roof, right? The novelty is worn off for them. They're complaining about everything. They're trying to find every single reason that impedes their journey rather than like, hey, like, I mean, I just don't understand my champion, right? They can't accept that. Right? Whereas a newer player, what I experienced, everything feels more novel to them, right? Everything feels like a new experience. So at the same time, it feels very overwhelming. So they get stun locked really easily is what I see as a new player. They're scared to fight, right? They're not really sure what's going on, right? They have low confidence, right? And then I think vice versa, they end up blaming themselves a lot, right? It's like, oh, all my teammates are flaming me. I don't know what's going on, right? So that's the kind of the difference I see between these two Elo, like not Elo range, but players.
Yeah. So to give it specific advice, if you're in one of these categories, if you're a newer league player, play the fucking game as much as possible.
Play way more, yes.
Try to get an understanding. Every single time that something catches you off guard, try to just understand what happened there by looking at the individual champions, okay? Just ask, why did I die? What was this champion doing that allowed me to die? Or look at it from the individual champs. If you're a longer-term unranked to gold player, you need to go back to the basics because there is something that's not going well. Either your mentality, which we're going to cover in the next slide, you're not understanding your champion, you're overcomplicating the game, or there's like some clear problem that has evolved in your gameplay that you haven't been able to get rid of. Single out, figure out what that problem is, and try to get rid of it. And that's then going to allow you to then unclog the river and get yourself to the next level. Now, unranked gold players, severe mindset issues from both sides. As we said, right? Different type of mindset issues depending on the bucket that you're in. We're going to be covering these in the next slide, so stay tuned for that. The final thing I want to note is that basic fundamentals are learned through your champion. We're going to talk about some basic fundamentals like wave management and trading and resets whenever you're in this bracket, but it's all depending on your champion. If you're playing Malzahar, it doesn't fucking matter how you trade. It's more about your wave management and your resets. If you're playing, let's say, Renekton on top lane, then of course it's going to be important for you to learn the trading. And maybe it's going to be a little bit less important to learn your roaming and playing with your jungle. Every single champion has their own fundamentals that are important to learn. Now, what's insanely important for you at this stage in the journey? Educational content, right? What are the series that are going to be really important for you to watch? Live commentary style gameplay, where people narrate their thoughts, where they just play the game. Great examples are Unranked, the Master Series. Another great example is live commentaries on our coaching program. Just individual games, educational-oriented games, where people talk about the thought process, about what the champion wants to do, which is then something that you can take inspiration from. Anything you want to add in this bucket here?
Love it. What I would say with the fundamentals thing is you're spot on. It's learn through your champ. We're not even at the point where you learn the fundamentals of the game, like the rules of the game. You don't even care about that right now, right? Because everything is viewed under the worldview of the champion you're playing, like you said, right? So don't worry about like, oh, how do I sync up tempo with my team, right? How do I like perfectly set up vision for a neutral objective? How do I maximize my reset against a champion, right? You don't have to worry about that. Play it towards what your champion wants to do, right? Just think everything in this elo is about how do I maximize my efficiency on my champion. That's it.
Love it. So what are common mistakes that players in the Iron to Gold elo range make? Well, first and foremost, taking every single play. They don't know which fights are good. They don't know which fights are bad because they don't have that innate mastery of their champions. Not only that, right? They also don't understand number advantages or disadvantages. I'm going to just explain something incredibly simple. And for a lot of people, this might already sound like extremely logical, but they don't spot it in game. In these elo ranges, probably, I would say, I'm going to make a bold guess, right? 80% of the fights are won or lost by either one of two simple things. You not playing towards your champion's identity, or you're in a number disadvantage.
Yeah.
80%. If you can eliminate 80% of these bad fights by understanding these two things, you're already going to be like cruising, absolutely cruising through this elo range. So what I see a lot is that these players are scared to make decisions because they're uncertain about themselves or they're overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
Leads into massive mindset issues. Covering that in the next slide. Another key thing that we see, which is something that you especially see, you've just talked about it, overviewing, analyzing. Yeah. What do you see there?
All right, so let's talk about this big bucket here. I think the first thing, being scared to make decisions. I've been reading a lot of books recently, and what the common trend I notice in a lot of books, especially like human psychology, is that your emotions dictate what you do. People who have the emotional part of their brain damaged, they literally cannot make decisions, right? It's impossible, even basic decisions. So what you guys need to do is when you're feeling a certain way, listen to your feelings first, especially this elo range, right? It's like if you feel scared, you need to figure out why you feel scared, right? Where is that fear coming from? Is it the fear of loss in the game, feeling like you're going to get flamed, right? Being inadequate? Where is that coming from, right? Again, we'll cover that in the mindset section, but I just want to let you guys know is like that is like the biggest thing holding you back because you're not going to improve if you're scared, right? And so segueing that into the overviewing, analyzing, right? What happens is that people try to over-index by like over-analyzing, over-explaining their gameplay after the fact, right? It's I felt like I had to be at every play, but then they start to explain it's like, oh, it's because of the tempo, because I'm strong right now. You know what I mean? Whereas like, yeah, at the end of the day, just keep it simple. Keep it to what does your champion want to be doing at each point in the game? Ask yourself that question. If there's one question I want you guys to ask yourself that during the game is, hey, what do I want to be doing on my champion right now? What would I be happy with? Let's remove every other variable, every other champion in the game. If I was playing in a vacuum, what would I want to be doing?
Love it. Very good. And if you can combine that, of course, with understanding what the next play is, you're going to be in a great position because you're going to start pre-planning. You can use that downtime in the game. You're going to be in a great position. Yeah. So, theory overload. One of my favorite concepts to talk about. My God. This is just, I've got such a passion for this because there's so many players, especially new players in the program. They're so excited in the coaching program. They want to get their coaching session. They get their coaching session. They work on a concept for like 4 days. And they're like, I got it.
I'm good.
I got it. When's the next session? And then we do the next session. And then we still see the same problems come up. And then I give them, but there's now a new bigger problem, like this new choke point in the river, which then leads them to get a new learning objective. And then the next session that we do 2 or 3 weeks later, all of their first issues have returned because they have not completely gotten rid of that. Theory overload, guys, is the biggest killer of not making progress. You really need to get specific and focus on one thing at a time because it's so easy to overcomplicate the game at this point in the game.
Yeah.
Just at this point in your journey. Focus on one fundamental, which is especially learning what your champion wants to do and view the game through that lens. Don't get crazy in doing all too many other stuff. Learning objective swapping. Very similar thing. Oh, I've been working on my spell usage on Mel. Great. And then a week later, they are working on their mid-game as Mel. Same position. Too early getting away from your learning objective leads to problems and easy ways to get stuck on your climb. mindset issues. This is a really fun slide. Every unranked gold player struggles with this one way or another. We're going to be diving deep in these mindset traps and how to fix them. Now, this is probably the most common one right here.
Yeah.
Not feeling good enough or worthy of climbing. And it's pretty sad. I actually understand that.
Me too.
Because the truth is, if you're in higher ranks, you have somewhat similar issues because you can see the gap between the best players and you.
Yeah.
Me, AJ, right? We see ourselves every day, and we see like Yahoo play and or like Cavs.
I'm playing against a Korean pro every other game, right? Like imagine how I feel, you know?
Exactly. So there's just these imposter issues right here. Comparing yourself to others instead of yourself, which is really struggling to climb, struggling on your climb. And I'm gonna just put a few examples out there in the program. I'm gonna say Sonia, right? One of the most kind-hearted, best people that we've ever had in the program. Super nice. Which is a new league player. She is she started for like a couple of years, and she's put so much pressure on herself because she was always asking, "Why am I still iron? Or why am I still bronze after playing 500 games? How comes that I'm not good enough to be better than iron or bronze? You're on the bottom of the ranks. Of course, you're going to compare yourself to all these other ranks. Yeah. It's a very tough experience. It's a really sad experience if you do that. So you're going to need to try to compare yourself to yesterday, guys. It's the only reasonable way to fix this. If you're going to compare yourself to others, you're going to feel shit because you are at the bottom of the rank ladder. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's just challenges for you to overcome, just like everyone else. It's just at a different rank. What do you see when it comes to this issue? This is so cool, right?
Yeah, this is a big one. So instead of talking about the issue, I want to talk about a solution, right? A potential solution, because I think some people might be like, okay, well, I identify it. Now what, right? So I'll give you guys an example of when I first started playing MOBAs in general, not League, but MOBAs. There's a StarCraft 2 custom game MOBA that I played. And I think my first 10 games, I didn't know what a tower did, right? Didn't know what any of the champs did. And so I think I played some like Zergling thing, and I think I died like 31 times or something. I went 1 in 31, right? And so the reason why I'm giving this story is that when I was a new player or when I was unranked, I didn't tie any expectations to the game, right? All I wanted to do was learn more about the game and have fun with it, right? So I think the solution here is you can be improvement mindset. You can have an improvement mindset, but don't be overly goal oriented, if that makes sense. Like paradoxically speaking, like let loose, just enjoy the process of the game, have fun with the game, and just experiment around. Because what happened, going back to that story to finish it, is I kept playing that StarCraft 2 MOBA. I started learning a little bit more. Then League came out, and League obviously, even League at its early days, blew that game out of the water. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna swap to League, right? This is like season 1 League. I would just do random stuff. I played like Maldred's Blood Racer Kog'Maw mid, and I would just do Maokai mid. I would just play literally the most random stuff, but that got me to like have fun with the game and just learn random stuff because I was curious about that stuff. And then when I actually jumped into ranked, I was able to effortlessly climb because I already developed the skills without like trying, if that makes sense, right? Like I wasn't putting pressure on myself to get X thing compared to someone else. I just was just exploring the game at this stage, exploring my champion.
Very interesting. So indeed, curiosity is the key, right? Curiosity is the key that's going to allow you to climb in this stage, because there's so much to learn if you're in this stage of your journey, especially in regards to your champion. And I think that's a really interesting experience that you said there, because I experienced a very similar thing in a different jacket. I started playing League in the start of like season 4 with my friend group. So we were all bronze 2, right? Everyone was fucking bronze 2. One of my friends was silver and one of my friends was gold, but he was already playing for a longer time. So I was comparing myself to my friends like all the time, right? But I got extremely curious to climb because of the fact that I got extremely curious to climb here because of the fact that I wanted to become better than my friends. So because of that, I started searching up guides. I started searching what champions are the best in mid lane, how to play them, what to itemize. And because of that, I got an understanding of the game, and I indirectly got better. Just a different motivator, but the curiosity is what the key was in this specific case. So, ranked anxiety. Oh, this is a fun one. Oh, ranked anxiety is incredibly common. It happens at every rank, but it is especially common at these ranks because of external pressures, right? People are scared to queue up because they're scared to get flamed. But there is a lot of flaming. I'm just going to put it out there. Okay, really funny story, okay? I had an account that I just leveled to 30 last year. And I had that account laying around. And because I won so many normal games on that account, I was like, okay, this account probably starts somewhere in like Plat or Emerald. Boy, was I wrong. I played my first ranked game on that account. I got autofilled on top lane. In first game, immediate autofill on top. Guess what happens? I lock in Yone. I see that my entire team is like Iron 3 or 4. Like,
oh my gosh.
Just bottom. That's like an old account. Wow. That account was created in season 4. And it only like leveled to 30 last year.
Right.
Because I just didn't always play on it. So I was in the bottom of the ranked ladder. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty fucked. So I didn't play on that account anymore after that. But I did have one of the best experiences that I've ever had in League. Because I saw what an actual Iron game looked like. I experienced it myself. I was in isolation on top lane. And it was just the rest of the map was just going at it.
Yeah.
What I experienced in that game was insanity. The amount of typing, the amount of blaming, the misunderstanding, the shit. It's the shit at that point that's going on there.
Yeah.
I feel for the players. Because a lot of these players that are there's the majority of the player base there, you don't have the curiosity if you're you're very new to the game, or you don't have the curiosity to get out of Iron. So this was just a blame game and flaming. And the shit that was said in that game was the combined shit that was said in my last 300 games in higher elo. That's how bad it was.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So no shit that if that is what the chat looks like, you're going to be scared to queue up.
Yeah.
When your jungle into your lane and then starts shit talking you. Right?
Yeah. Right.
It's just a delusion going on.
Yeah. Wow.
So I understand that it can be a very scary place. So to limit this, mute all. Every single game. No chat, no pings, guys. The amount of gaslighting in these ranks is insanely high. This is going to lower your ranked anxiety. It's not going to matter if you lose. It's not going to matter if you win. You're just going to play you versus you instead of you versus the entire world. Yeah. What else do you see in regards to ranked anxiety in these ranks?
Yeah, so I'll draw upon my own experiences. I never had anxiety with League, but I had a lot with StarCraft 2, which again is a competitive game, the ranked ladder, so same vein. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what gave me ranked anxiety is that if I did well the last game, I would actually have more ranked anxiety. And the reason why is because I felt like I wouldn't be able to replicate what I did, or there's so much I have to think about, and it felt so overwhelming that it felt scary to play the game, right? I'd be like, oh, well, I just did, for all you StarCraft nerds, I did a quick expansion into a Roach all-in, right? And I was like, oh, well, that was so hard for me to do, right? Like I perfectly caught the enemy off guard, yada, 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 right? I was way overemphasizing the win and everything that was going on rather than just like sticking clear to like the basics, right? And so I think the key, again, the solution during anxiety is narrow down your view. Stop trying to do so much at once, accomplish so many things at once. Pick 1 or 2 learning objectives and have that be your mindset going into it.
Lower the bar, guys. You gotta lower the bar for yourself. Keep it simple. One thing, and that's gonna make it easier for you to queue up. If all you need to do in the next game is to, like, for example, what was a great example? Is just to be aware of the next neutral objective and ping it. If you can just do that, if that's when you succeed, that's when you're gonna be in a great position. Okay? Yeah, it's gonna be 100%. Manageable. It's gonna be replicable. And it's going to reduce your anxiety. It's going to also then allow you to feel good of yourself because you're doing something well. Mm-hmm. Now, blindly following teammates is a direct result of this. And this is the quick way to be stuck forever. Whenever you're not going to play your own game, you're not going to create your own feedback loop. So be very careful with that, guys. Right. So this all kind of ties into this next topic, which is that a lot of players see the rank for as it is, and they're not able to understand what the improvement actually feels like because they never felt it before. And I understand that because it's very challenging to feel improvement. Because to feel improvement, you need to compare yourself to a few weeks before. And how often do you compare yourself, or can you see yourself in regards to a few weeks? So let's get it specific, right? If you feel like you struggle with this, what you're going to do is you're going to set one learning objective on the specific champ that you're playing. We're going to take Ari, okay? Ari as an example. What I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you do not try to use your ult for solo kills on mid lane. So you have it for the big objectives. This is a massive generalization, not always the best play, but it's a reference point, okay? Correct. And that's something that you can work with. So what you're going to do is now play a game, or like your last game that you played, have that VOD, keep it, record it, keep it. And then in 3 weeks' time, after you've worked on this for 3 weeks straight, compare your new VOD to the old VOD that you played, and you're going to see a night and day difference. And that's when you're going to feel the improvement.
Love it.
So, hardcore champion mental blocks.
Oh,
this one's fun. Just, what's the last one that you heard this week?
Oh, man. Mel was the last one I heard. Because I think I heard that one maybe like 15 times a day, 20 times a day. You know, like it's on repeat. It's Mel, man. That one. I bet everyone listening, this is gonna get into viewership. Everyone listening is gonna resonate and be like, yeah, Mel, fuck Mel, right? And yeah, I agree. This elo has hardcore mental blocks because if you aren't even sticking to reference points with your champion, how are you going to know what the other champion wants to do? How are you going to play around with the other champion? So, of course, the default response is not going to be, oh, that's not the lack of information, right? Because, again, we're emotional creatures. It's going to be, this champ is bullshit. What the fuck is this champion, right? Yeah. Fuck you, Riot Games. You know, that's what the response is going to be like.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I had a Lux, one of my friends is like a Lux OTP, right?
Yeah.
And he's made the climb from silver to like Emerald 4 this year for the first time. Yeah. He's reached Emerald. But it took him a long time to get from silver to there, right? Yeah. He's not watched any guide. He's not the curious type. He just fucking plays the game for fun. But he's made the climb. Yeah. He's really fucking good on Lux. Yeah. But the reaction of him when the enemy locked Zed, he would just lose it just by seeing Zed on the enemy team. He would just be done before the game even starts.
Yeah.
We would be playing Flex. And when I'm playing Flex, I'm just chilling with the boys, right? I sort of forget to ban a champ. And he would just get so mad at me that I didn't ban a champ and I could have banned Zed, you know? And then they would pick Zed, and I would get blamed all game because he would be playing against that shit. Hardcore champion mental blocks. Yeah. Hardcore. Yeah. So if you're seriously thinking like some champs are bullshit to deal with, I understand. Some champs are hard to understand. Yeah. Right? We're gonna work on this in the later ranks. If you can get good on your champ, this shouldn't be necessarily an issue. Yeah. Because they will not be able to play the game perfectly. They're going to make a lot of mistakes and throw the game. But of course, if you can get curious and you're interested in understanding how the champion works, you can absolutely do that. On my secondary YouTube channel for the mid laners, I am making series of how to beat X champion. Figure it out online, how to counter X. And you're going to find some, even if it's just 1 or 2 gold nuggets, it's already going to put you in a good spot. Now, practical learning objectives for the players in this elo range. In-game learning objectives. We're going to just list these out here. This is what I want you to think whenever you're in-game. Every deployment in these lull states, right? Ask yourself, what is the next neutral objective and what does my champion want to do? Keep it simple, guys, in-game. That's the only thing that you got to get to your frontal cortex, what you said? the prefrontal cortex.
Prefrontal cortex. Yeah.
It's the only active thing that you want to be thinking during the game. The rest, you want your initiative to take over.
Intuition.
That's it. Now, you also want to focus on landing your spells and getting good at getting your damage off.
Yes.
Right? Understanding your trading sequences. How is your spells comboed? Don't throw your REE when your Q is on cooldown, because you're not going to be able to follow up with damage. It sounds simple, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually...
Know your rotation.
Know your rotation. It's something that simple that can just be so effective in regards to seeing results. Out of game, in the review, in this ELO range, you want to keep it simple, okay? Don't review too much. Don't over-review, over-analyze. But just do max like 2-3 minutes per game, just to get that curiosity of something that like felt bad and figure out what exactly happened, or just rewatch it. Go for trades that felt bad, what you didn't understand about the enemy champion cooldowns, how could you as a champion have used your spells better to win out on the trade. Look at your devs, what caught you off guard, what did you not understand, and look at the key skirmishes in the game, right? Did we play towards what our champion wants to do? The key of this ELO range is curiosity, guys. If you die or something catches you off guard, don't shift the blame, take accountability, get curious, figure out why it happened, and what you can do in the future to change it. Anything you want to add to this beautiful ELO range of Iron to Gold?
No, I think you recapped it perfectly. I mean, curiosity is key, guys, right? Curiosity is key.
We're moving on to the next ELO range, which is going to be Gold 4 to Emerald 4. Now, in Unranked to Gold, it's all about understanding and mastering your champion. So we gotta now get to the next level of understanding of League, which is about understanding how your champion interacts with the enemy champions in the games. It's going to be a lot about not only understanding what your champion wants to do, but how does every kit work and how can our champion interact or function in regards to the enemy champions. Matchup understanding how to use your spells in regards to some champs. We're going to just take an example. Using Morgana E the moment Nautilus throws his Q instead of just wasting it. Or holding REE until Fizz has used his E, otherwise he's going to dodge it. Or like the Yasuo windfall. Matchup understanding should be more important. What are your key takeaways or like things that you see in this ELO range?
Yeah, so the things I see this ELO range is contextualizing the game with your champion, kind of what we're covering here. I'll give you an example in a second, right? It's consistency in the amount of champions they play, right? How many champions are they playing? How many complex champions are they playing, right? It's understanding what fights to take and not to take, getting a little bit more sophistication rather than it just simply being numbers advantage or I'm strong, right? It's more about, well, what makes this fight a good fight or a bad fight, right? So a higher quality low state usage. I think those are the problems I see, and those are the things that would need to be worked on to kind of push past this ELO range. And to kind of end it with an example here, there was I had an Emerald 4 Zed review, right? This guy was really freaking good at Zed. His mechanics on Zed were great, right? He knew how to get fed, right? But he played Zed the same way every game. So the enemy had Ezreal Taric bot, okay? The Ezreal had armor boots and barrier, and they had a Taric, right? And their enemy jungler was like a squishy assassin. So what the Zed did is every single fight, he pushed, or like every single situation, he pushed mid, roam bot, and try to dive Ezreal. Or at the start of the fight, he would immediately art Ezreal. And I'm sure you can imagine what happened. Ezreal just full tanked his combo, and he died. So notice how it's not that he doesn't know good target selection, right? Obviously going to AC is good. It's not like he doesn't know the micro. He just didn't contextualize it. He didn't know what the other champions wanted to do around him, right?
Yeah. Love that. That's a fantastic example. What we find in this ELO range is that there's a lot of inconsistent players. Players that play the game off and on. Players that sometimes feel like, hey, I want to get to that diamond rank. I want to really climb, but then 2 weeks later, the flame is gone. We also see inconsistency in champion pool in regards to, or like even roles. Like players, whenever you get to this range, you're pretty damn good at the game. We're like top 50% already of the player base. Which means that you know a lot about the game, which means that a lot of parts of the game also find extremely fun. Some players play too many roles, play too many champs, and if you play too many champs, you can't build enough champion mastery, you can't understand the game fundamentals. So in regards to your champion pool, if you're in this elo range, you're going to play a champion pool of 2 to 3 max champions. And complexity really matters, guys. If you're on the lower end of this spectrum, don't dabble into too complex champs because it's too hard still for you. If you're on the higher end, you can play one complex champ and that's it. But still, keep your champion pool limited so you can focus on the game fundamentals. And keep in mind that if you want to break through this elo range, you can't do it by sporadically playing the game or playing on autopilot. You need to have genuine will to climb. Otherwise, the wall is going to be too big.
Yep.
So we talked about matchup understanding, right? This directly links towards this first quote here.
Yes.
Laning on your champion, just let's take, for example, Malzar, right? Malzar in the lane, he wants to get towards his wave clear breakpoint at like level 6 and his lost chapter as soon as possible. That works all the way up until gold 4, right?
Yeah.
And what's going to happen the moment you're going to face up against the gold 1 Victor player, right? They know what their champion wants to do as well, which is bully the enemy in the lane. So they're not going to let you get away with that for free. They're now going to start pressuring you. It's going to be harder for you to get through that initial part of your lane, leading you to be in a position where you're going to get contested and you need to contextualize your champion into the bigger picture, which is challenging to do. And that's what we're going to do in this elo range.
Yep.
Now, the fundamentals. How do Gold 4 to Emerald 4 players interact with the fundamentals, AJ?
Yeah, so first let's start with Unranked to Gold, right? That was when all the fundamentals is just your champion specific, right? What is your worldview with your champion, okay? Gold to Emerald is now you're introducing the rules of the game. Let's call it that, right? So are you on the map at the same time as your jungler if you're a mid laner, right? If you're a top laner and you're playing Renekton, are you putting pressure and forcing someone to react to you in the top side before you move, right? If you're playing ADC and you're playing Jinx, are you pushing the first few waves to get your Q stacked, right? And getting the bounce back, right? So this is like the basic rules of the game. How does your lane navigate a certain game? What's your job as this lane? That's what you're really trying to do. And same thing with mid game. Is like you're learning now the basic rules of mid game rather than just always about grouping for neutrals. It's how do I leverage side if I'm a side lane champion, right? Or how do I get mid push and start to siege mid if I'm a sieging champion, right? So start to kind of talk a little bit more bigger picture about like how does the game work, right?
Basic fundamentals, basic wave management, resets, trading is something that you're going to need to learn in this stage. And that's good because you now understand how your champion works. So it's going to be easier for you to now understand why certain things interact the way that they do. It's going to allow you to expand your big picture understanding of the game. Now, mid game, we're going to now really talk about a bit more sophisticated parts of mid game. You already covered some key topics, but the big thing that we see in this elo range is that fights. The game is won through fights. Everything is about picking the right fights, and all the information that we're gathering in the lull states and the macro that we're doing is about allowing us to picking the right fights. So we're going to be thinking when the next neutral objective is. Who are the strong members in our team? Who do we want to play with? Who do we want to avoid like the plague? Right? If your top lane is 5-0 and your bot lane is 0-5, you're going to play the Grubbies and the Rift Herald and not the first two Drakes because you're going to get fucking blasted. Okay? It's about picking the right fights. And a big key team that's going to separate like the lower end Gold 4 players to like the Emerald 4 players is understanding how to force fights and create number advantage by forcing people to respond to waves. The numbers are going to be insanely important for having an easy, smooth way to win out these fights very consistently. And I'm just going to put it out there. This is the reason why if you put like a challenger player in like one of these games, that they have a 0% chances of losing. They will never lose a game in this elo range because they understand how to force people to respond to wave, create number advantages, and force on that, while enemies do not see it at that point yet. There's literally a 0% chance they will lose the game. To put it in context, what do you want to say? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to put it in context as well.
Go ahead, man.
Because I was doing some streams, right? And a lot of my students were saying, because I was doing live teachings in Challenger, right? Live commentary. And people would be like, oh, but in my Emerald 4 game and my Diamond 1 game, this doesn't happen. Even going up to Diamond, I know we're talking about Emerald. But so I was like, okay, So what I did is I had an Emerald Smurfs. I haven't played on that in like 12 years. It was about diamond range, low diamonds, high emerald maybe. I think I started at Emerald 2, right? Emerald 3, somewhere there. I went from Emerald 3 to Masters LP. I did not lose one. I didn't lose a single time. I think I actually went to 400 LP Master without losing a single time. And it was the same conceptual idea every single time. It was complete mastery over what my champion wanted to do, combined with forcing the enemy to have to react to my decisions, what I wanted to do, right? And get my team on the same page about what is it that I want to be doing on my champion. And if it wasn't aligned with what my team wanted to do, I said no to the play. Those were the things I repeated, and boom, I won every single game and up until that yellow range.
Consistency is key. What we're going to try to do is consistently pick the best quality fights that we can get, and every macro decision that we're making is about increasing the odds of us winning the fights. And if the odds are not not high enough for us to take it, we don't take the fight because we're not flipping. That's what this elo range is about. So we're going to talk about a really, really, really fun part. The big fucking emerald wall. It's huge. It's green. It's have you ever seen Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones? I was using Attack on Titan, but yeah, I have.
Okay. So in Game of Thrones, you have the Great Wall of Ice, where the Night Walkers are trying to get through. Yes. That's what I envision with the big emerald wall, the great Game of Thrones wall in the north there.
Yeah.
Okay. So why is this such a big, big, big wall? It's because the players above this rank are getting serious. Okay. There's players that are getting very, very, very good. And they play a lot of games. They have very good mastery of the champion. They are insanely curious and passionate players. And for you to get even better than them is going to require a lot of effort. So a lot of players that, especially new players, just the new players that come into our coaching program, they cruise through bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and then they get to plat 1/emerald 4, and it's like, and it breaks, and it just fucking stops.
Correct.
And that's where it was. That's where you got to have so much understanding of the game to really get through, because there's a lot of passionate people from that point onwards.
Yeah.
So if you're at this wall right now, don't feel bad about it. Okay, this just means that there's a lot for you to learn, and it's going to be a great fun experience for you. We're going to talk about some more stuff in some other slides here as well. Let's talk about some narratives. So the players in this elo range are fucking flamers. Okay, there's big flamers. You got big flamers in lower elo range, but you got big flamers in this elo range as well. A lot of players get good and get to this elo range by understanding what their champ wants to do, but then they struggle to see the bigger picture and start thinking about what the game actually looks like and the fundamentals of the game, and they just can't grasp it. So what do? They blame the jungle. Of course they do. I do as well, for fucking junglers. Always the junglers, man. They blame the jungle. They blame the jungle, right? And there's a lot of people just pushing out their failures towards their team, struggle to take accountability, and therefore it's hard for them to truly see the fundamentals of the game. And if I'm explaining you right now, you're going to need to make a lot of changes if this is you, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in this elo range forever. And unless you want that, it's time to make some changes. And
one thing I just want to add to wrap things up here is, I'll give you an example. So I had a student come in earlier this week. He's a Zir. He's platinum, I think, platinum 1. And this is where, you have to expand your worldview, because up until this point, just your worldview alone on your champion is great. And so he was playing Azir, and he was pushing a lot. And I told him for advice, I was like, hey, with your champions, contextualizing the game, you have to group. Okay, you have to group nice and early. You have team fight comp. Okay. And his response to me, because this is his narrative as teammate, you even hear it in the review. He's like, my Kindred and my Ezreal always died before the play. We watched that 40-minute review. I did not see that happen one time. That never happened a single time that entire game. But what actually happened is he over-indexed in the side lane, because his worldview as an Azir is to play the side lane, right? And so he was never synced up with his team. He got to every objective late, and his team was unironically winning fights 4v5 for 40 seconds, 50 seconds, a full minute before he got there. So this is where narrative and really understanding, this is what you guys need to do. you need to assume you're wrong and prove yourself right. Don't assume you're right and prove yourself wrong, because that's not going to happen. You're going to find reasons to justify your narrative, right? So come with the assumption that your worldview is imperfect and prove yourself right.
Love it.
Or you're gonna get a situation where you're just saying stuff that didn't even happen, right?
Love it.
So yeah.
Really good. I love this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. So this is also the ELO range, right? Where you're going to need to implement series reviews. Okay. If you want to break through this, you need to start looking at your gameplay. What are you actually doing right? What are you doing wrong? Especially take accountability. And also in this ELO range, educational content is still key. There's a lot you don't understand about the game yet. So instead of reinventing the wheel, just copy of what works. Just look at someone who is able to explain the fundamentals and the concepts of the game properly, and then apply that yourself. And just try to copy them and then see what works and what doesn't work. Always put it in context of your own gameplay. Now, common mistakes in this ELO range is still not playing with enough intention and being a passenger of the game. What we especially see is that players, they're starting to grasp that there is a bigger picture than just their champion, but they don't know what to do with it just yet. So they're not confident of taking the accountability to take intention and be okay with just losing the game in regards to making a call. And this is heavily stunting their growth. Do you see this often in your sessions or not that much?
Yeah, I what I see a lot in these sessions is you're at the point where, again, you're playing with people who also know their champions decently well. And so they get I like this passenger of the game mentality, right? Where they are just riding the train of what someone else wants. And what I really find a lot is that the players are not trusting their ability to understand what's good for their champion enough, right? They just completely throw that away the second someone pings or communicates what they want to do, and then they feel lost and overwhelmed because they're like trying to like make their jungler happy as a mid laner, for example, while doing what their champion wants to do, right? And that's what makes them feel so lost and overwhelmed, I feel like.
Yeah, I think such a good example. It's like, let's take a Kindred invading an enemy jungle, okay? What you see so often is that there's these conflicting feelings, because when the victor player knows that their Kindred is invading and they see it and they try to like help, but they don't really, they know that they shouldn't because their champ is like, it's like indecision in that case. I love it. Yeah. So fun to see. By the way, there's going to be some questions. How do you fix that, guys? Well, I'm not sure if you guys have ever been in a plane, but if you're in a plane, what do they say in the introduction? Put your own mask first. Before helping your children, okay? Just let your fucking jungle die in that case, right? It's fine.
Yeah. And the mindset you would have, this is what I say a lot, so I really want to say this. We'll probably say it actually in every ELO past this, but it's the idea that if you're, we'll go back to the Victor analogy, right? You know Victor better than anyone else in that game knows Victor. That is just a fact. That is an objective fact, that you understand Victor better than anyone else. So you should be making decisions based off of that knowledge, right? If you're Kindred, because you're like, what if you get flamed? Okay, well, does that Kindred know Victor as well as you do? No. So is his flame worth putting energy on, worth changing your decisions, right? You're basically letting a novice tell a master what to do, right? In any other field, that would never happen. So don't let that happen to your own gameplay, right? That's what I would say practically what you should be doing.
Great example. I really, really like that.
Yeah.
So, because these players, right, are in this ELO range, they're understanding a little bit more what the game is about. They know some fundamental basics, but they don't really know what is important to focus on. And I get a lot of these comments in my YouTube, actually, because on my YouTube, I'm creating a lot of videos. Find your biggest weakness and improve it. That's like the river analogy, right? That's what climbing a league is all about. And then just bring up your weaknesses. And then I get these comments, but Tim, I really appreciate you saying this. Like, it's great advice. But I don't know what my weaknesses are. They're not good enough at identifying it yet. Exactly. So what would you give a player advice to figure that out themselves?
Yeah, so again, given the fact that gold to emerald is all about contextualizing your champions, where I would start with is what are your blind spots in the champions in the game, in the review, right? What does this champion want to be doing in a particular point in the game? What's this matchup? Like, when do you win and lose at this point in the matchup, and how do you leverage that, right? And then going to blind spots, start with the idea that you're wrong and prove yourself right in the review. It's like, hey, I'm just going to assume I don't know the matchup. I'm going to watch it and be like, I think I actually did this well, that well, because that will actually show you the blind spots. Because you'll be like, wait, I don't actually think I did this particular thing well, and then you could focus on that, right? So start with the assumption that, hey, maybe I'm not sure exactly what I should be doing, and I'm going to point out all the good things I did, and then you'll naturally gravitate to the things that you don't really like, that you feel like you didn't do well.
Another thing that can really help is trend reviewing, right? Or using your feelings, right? Whenever you're at this point in your journey, you will feel if something feels shit. If you're going to get gapped in lane, you're going to feel disgusted about yourself. Yeah. If you feel like you're ahead, but you can't carry, it's that feeling, hey, I feel like I get ahead every game, but my teammates are behind, so I can't carry them.
Yeah.
That you got to use this. Or just pick 10 games and look at the trends and see what exactly is going right and what's exactly going wrong. That's how you can find this yourself.
Love it.
Now, the fun thing about these players is that most of them are like OTPs in fundamentals. They're like fundamental OTPs. You have players that are insanely good at lane, but they are just like playing on with blindfolds in the mid game. Like literally, they're not watching their screen. And they're like generally good in the lane. Like they're like, man, I did like a session. I did literally a session with an Emerald 4 player or like a Plat 1 player. And he was playing a range into melee matchup. And he was two-way cycling, punishing on last hits, creating training windows. Because he's like, I was like, damn, dude. You're like literally nailing this, like master level fundamentals. And then we got to the mid game and I was like, my God. Just no awareness of neutral objectives, just not identifying TP, being on the wrong side of the map, no communication. It's just, you got players that are really good at certain things and really bad at other things. And a lot of players, what they do is that they keep thinking like they need to improve the things they're already good at. I can't carry my team when I'm ahead, so I'm not ahead enough.
Yes. Oh my God, that happens all the time. Yes.
We hear this all the time, right?
Yes. I have an example. I had a session where I had the same exact champion against the same matchup back to back. Two different students, same elo, same matchup, same everything. It was Akali versus Mouse.
Okay.
And it was exactly what you just described. The exact same thing. They're like, hey, AJ, I don't know how to carry this game. Okay. They started off 3-0 against Mouse, and all they did is on repeat in lane, flash R, kill the Mouse, flash R, kill the Mouse. And I was like, hey, for both of them, same thing. I was like, what if you use your priority to go dive a side lane? Right? What if you go help someone else, get someone else strong? Right? I just gave them a completely different perspective. They're like, wait, you can do that? That's something I can do? Right? And so kind of tying everything together, humans are really good at recognizing what they already see, what they're already comfortable with, right? And so what you said there that I liked earlier is use your feeling, right? Yeah. What felt really bad and go to that. Or if you know what you're good at, I want you guys to think really hard about what are other fundamentals that you are aware of that you might be subconsciously not thinking about, right? And that way you can kind of identify your weak spots and your blind spots.
Love it. Really, really practical advice here. So high highs, low lows. And this is a really interesting one with these players because they usually view themselves as their high highs. And like you mentioned, they then try to like forget the low lows. They like put it away and they then think that they're like better than what they actually are because they don't see the consistency over a longer period of time. But they see that one pop-off game where they have like master level laning fundamentals and then their jungle like makes one mistake and brings it down, and that means that they're like getting gate capped in the elo because of their jungle and not because of the fact that the next game they actually went 0-12, but that game actually didn't exist.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many times that there's a player showing up to review, right? And I'm doing this review with this like Platinum 1 player. And we're looking at the game, and it's like that. He went like 709, and he brings in this game. And he said, yeah, I thought this was a game that I played well. And I was just curious about the things that I could have done better, because this is me at my best. And then I'm like, yeah, you played a really good game. You could have done this and this and this better, but this was overall quite good. I want you to keep doing this. But then after the session, I always ask, but how comes you're in Plat 1 whenever you show me a game like this? So then I ask for their OPGG, and on their OGG...
They're exposed. Yes.
You see the wild shit, right? You see that this 709 game, and the game after that is literally 012. And I'm like, why didn't you bring me that game?
I love that so much. That literally happened to me recently as well, because someone had asked me for private coaching rather than MLA. So like our in-house session, she was like, my problem is I don't know how to transition my lead in mid-game as a calling player. Okay? And I was like, great, let's do a session tomorrow. Record your game's POV, because he wasn't in the MLA, so he didn't know he had to record POV. I was like, okay, great. Record your game's POV, right? And we'll review tomorrow. You know, he sent me in the morning. He sent me screenshots like, nah, we can't review, because his games were 3-12, 5-13, 0-9, right? And in his mind, he's only thinking about his highs. He's like, oh, well, at my best, I'm only bad at my mid game. But in reality, he's just inconsistent as fuck in his lane. And he couldn't accept that, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't want to even bring in reviews. He's like, nope, let's cancel the coaching. This isn't one I want to cover, right? Yeah. So just be very, very cognizant of that, guys, of your consistency.
And this is really common, right? And this is something that I actually really struggled with as well, because I felt if I didn't show my best gameplay to someone else, I would feel like my ego would feel
mistakes are obvious, or the mistakes are obvious.
Yeah, the mistakes were obvious. And even though the mistakes may feel obvious, if this is you thinking right now, maybe the mistakes are obvious, but you clearly haven't found a way to deal with them or practically resolve them.
Yes.
So even if you already can see your own mistakes, getting someone else to look at your gameplay and then spot those same mistakes, watch it through a different lens, and give you practical ways to improve it, so much value. So much value. 100%. Great. General trends. Mid-game is a bit too complicated for Gold to Emerald players, because of the fact that it's just so much going on. There's so many concepts, and it's not like black and white concepts. In laning phase, you have trading, wave management, resets, warding and leaning. It's easy black and white concepts that you can see that are like probably done or not. But if you look at the mid game, there's invisible shit for a lot of people. It's like literally invisible shit. So that's what is a little bit too complicated for most players, and therefore generally it's just a bit more of a mistake on this elo range. Anything you want to add to common mistakes in this range?
No, I think we hit the nail on the head. Love it.
Beautiful. Mindset issues. There's a lot of mindset issues in every single rank, guys. But Gold to Emerald. What is the number one problem that we see? LP-focused mindset instead of an improvement-focused mindset. So moving on to the mindset issues in this elo category. And the first thing that we see all the time is focusing on the rank too much instead of the improvement. Simply because the climb just goes a lot slower starting from this point. And the expectations that players set beforehand to this point are unsustainable. To put it in perspective, if you climb through your champion, you can hit like 600 LP in the span of 4 weeks by understanding your champion. But that doesn't work anymore at this rank. There's like bigger walls. Players are getting better. You can't make these big climbs anymore. So what a lot of people now think is, hey, if I can make this climb from silver 2 to fucking plat 4 in the span of 4 weeks, why can't I climb from plat 4 to plat 3 in 4 weeks as well? What is going on? Why am I stuck right now? Yeah. And this leads to massive issues to focusing on the actual rank instead of looking at their improvement. And even though they're improving, the competition gets higher. It means that you got to just get incrementally even better to now make similar ways of improvements. And the climb is just slowing down. The higher elo you get, the slower the climb actually becomes. And that is a big, tough pill to swallow for a lot of players. And just put it in context, you simply need to become a better player. Focus on what you can control. Focus on your learning objectives instead of looking at the rank. That's the number one tip.
Yeah.
Glimpses of glory. This is a beautiful one, right? We already talked about it.
Yeah, I love this.
What do you see when it regards to these
Yeah,
players
just to expand on this. So what happens is that again, humans are emotional creatures. So you anchor on the best moments that you remember, right? And the things that you're good at is what you anchor on, right? So just to give you an example, maybe you're an RE player, and something you really struggle with that you don't even notice is that you keep having to use your R to keep yourself alive, right? You're over reliant on your mobility. But then at the same time, the glimpses of glory on your gameplay is like you really understand Ari versus Silas the first 5 levels. Like you completely destroy a Silas the first 5 levels. So you're thinking, well, I did so well, and then you get ganked, you get frustrated because like boom, all your lead is just gone, right? So you have moments that you're really anchored towards, that you're really passionate about, but you lose sight of some of the other areas that's causing you to either lose that area that you're good at, right, or just simply cause you to lose the game, right? And so what that leads to is tunnel visioning on the wrong parts of their gameplay, the things you're already good at, you're focusing on, right? Overemphasizing on the things you're good at. So it's really what it comes down to is you have to expand your worldview, right? You have to expand your horizons. Go to the moments that feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, correct. And just to put it in context again, right? I had this friend that I talked about that climbed really fast, not really fast, but he climbed purely just by playing a really solid Lux to Emerald, and that's where he just got like just the big fucking Emerald wall. There was no way for him to ever get over that unless he expands his view. But if I looked at his Lux, the way that he intuitively landed skill shots was like insanely high level.
Very good.
Really good. Like really good in understanding of skill shots, and just by intuition, by just drilling it, practicing it. Like these glimpses of glory. But then there's these other parts of the gameplay that are just non-existent. And you gotta become a little bit more of a well-rounded player. Like you can brute force yourself on certain champs to like master tier, right? You can brute force yourself. But it's a lot easier to build the big picture and just the general fundamental level of your play. Now, gaslighting is going on a lot. Not only do people blame other players in this elo range, they also gaslight themselves. Like once again, the thinking that they're good at some things while they're actually not. How often have players come into the review session with you saying, I think my laning's pretty good.
Oh my God.
I think my mid game is where I struggle. And then they're actually 0-2 starting going into the mid game.
Probably, 80% of my reviews, probably. Like an absurd amount, actually absurd amount, because it's just your bias, your worldview is biased. So you think, oh, my mid game is what I'm struggling with. And then like you said, your laning is just not where it should be. It's like, especially on control, I see this a lot of control mages, right? Because they're thinking, oh, I got to my last chapter, right? I didn't die in or I minimally died in lane, right? And so I'm good, right? But then they're missing the area where like they can actually put some pressure in the game and impact the game the most.
Yeah.
Right? So I see this all the time. All the freaking time.
You know what the fun thing is that I see with these control mage players, right? They get to last chapter, they're farming like 10 CS per minute. But the enemy mid laner is like taking over the map. Like just roaming into bolt, jungle fights, killing their jungle. And then they're like, I can't carry in the mid game. I did find a lane, but they just lost complete lane control. So they don't see this thing. Massive gaslighting. Really fun. One of my favorite things is they think they can play the big boy champs, but they can't. How many times do we see in the Choosing Champion channel, I want to play Azir. I want to play Zed. I want to play, what do you guys think? And I'm just going to be really honest, right? I've only, over the past few years, I've only seen one player climb on Zed. Like, truly. Like, that hard is how he is. So, I understand that there's champs that are insanely fun, right? Insanely mechanical, insanely challenging. And you think you're good enough to play it. With insane amount of dedication, you'll be able to do it, right? I'm not saying that you can't, but I'm saying there's a high likelihood that you won't. Okay? So unless you're a special breed, you will not be able to climb on these extremely, extremely hard champions.
I'm going to give anecdotal evidence because I'm the Yone guy, right? People come to me for Yone.
Oh
man. I'm not even exaggerating. I have probably had at least 25 clients. At least. I might be underselling. Okay? Of this exact journey. I'm gonna highlight this exact journey start to finish because I think this will be perfect to encapsulate gold to emerald. Okay, they come to me at gold. They're like, "Hey, I want to play Yone." This is exactly what I tell them. I'm like, "Hey, if you really love Yone, play him, but you're going to have mindset issues. You're going to get stuck the second you reach Plat 1, Emerald 4, right? You're going to complain about your champion, and then you're going to quit them. Because I've seen this happen. I say this every time. I'm like, no. I think I love this champion. I think I could do it, right? What happens is they come to me for a session. We talk about Yone fundamentals. They climb through gold. They're cruising through gold. They climb through platinum. They're cruising through platinum. Like, oh, this is so easy. Lo and behold, 2 months later, they come in. They're 500 games Yone, 50% win rate, Emerald 4, and they're like, what do I do now? And then I take off the training wheels. I tell them everything they should be working on. They're like, nope, that's too much. I quit. And they quit. And I've literally 25 plus students. I have not seen a single one get past the Emerald Wall.
Yeah.
It's too hard. Yeah. It's too hard with too many complex champs. Even if you're only playing one complex champ, like someone that complex like Yone, that's above and beyond, who's also just objectively not the strongest champ, right? Or like Azir, same thing. It doesn't happen. It's just they get stuck at the Emerald Wall, and then it's too much to overcome.
Yeah, and it's actually quite a sad thing because
it's sad.
The majority of those players, because those players also came to my session as well. We had very similar like reviews. We exposed the stuff, and then what happens that they try for like a couple of months. They keep trying. Yeah, they can't budge, and actually, majority of those players they actually quit the game. From that point.
They literally quit the game.
They literally quit.
They burn out. That's happened multiple times. And it's always with the complex champs, by the way. I've always seen it. I've only seen it happen with complex champs. With Yone, I see a lot of people quit because they're burnt out. With Azir, I see a lot of people quit or burnt out. But when I coach like Annie, they're chilling.
Annie?
Yeah.
No, I think all the Annie players are stuck, dude. I've not seen a single Annie play climb. Nah, really? that champ is fucking hard.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I've seen people have success with like Annie or like a mid-tier difficulty champ like Ari. I've seen success, right?
Everyone's having success on Ari, dude.
Yeah.
They're like cruising through the program.
But
like, it's
but the point is that like all the complex champs people quit, right? I see that all the time. They either quit the game or they switch champs.
Yep, absolutely. Champion mental blocks are still present in this ELO range, right? There's still players that don't understand how certain champs work or get a massive aversion to some champs. But it's a lot less in regards to the previous ranks, like the unranked to gold. Because the players are starting to understand a little bit better what each champion wants to do. This becomes way less the higher you go because everyone starts understanding the big picture of the game a little bit more.
Yep.
Now, learning objectives in gold to emerald. We're going to just list them out here in-game, right? We're going to now continue with this lull state usage that we talked about in the unranked gold section. You want to identify what the next neutral objective is, what your strong side, what your weak side is. It's all about taking these proper fights, setting up for the proper fights, calculate your odds, and then you're going to be in a position where it's going to be easy for you to play fights or not easy for you to play fights. Ping them off or go in whenever the odds are in your favor. The mindset that you want to have is picking the most consistent fights as possible. A really good example that I can give you guys is Katarina players. Whenever they join the program, they have, if you look at skill trees, everything is like invested in the micro and the mechanics and the fighting, not in the macro. What you see that they do is that they take every fight, even though it's like 1v3, and then like they barely don't get the kill, right? The third kill, or like the one of the kills that's going to give them the reset so they can kill everyone, right? Yeah. It's like this close. And they say to me, Tim, if I just played this Q slightly better, if I angled it like 0.5 degrees to the north, I would have gotten the dagger, and I would have triple killed them all. I say, maybe you're right? But is this the most consistent play to take, right? It's not. And climbing in this ELO range is all about consistency. Yeah. So you want to compare the odds of you winning the game to the odds of you winning the fight. And if the fight is any lower to the odds of you winning the game, you should probably call it off. Consistency is key. And your ability to create these consistent fights is going to allow you to climb. So, anything you want to add to this, by the way?
No, I think that's perfect. Love it.
Great. So, actively identify the enemy laner's cooldowns, right? We're now going to think a little bit more about the enemy champion and use these as opportunities when they are down so you can trade and get leads going. Out of game, right? We're going to now look a little bit deeper at reviews. Reviews are going to be serious at this rank. So not just the two 2-minute review. We're going to now bump it up to at least like 3 to 5. Got to get a little bit more curious. Every time you take a bad fight, go into the review, figure out why the fight was bad, what variables you missed about your champ or the enemy champ that led to the outcome of the fight, and what you could do to fix the situation. Out of game. Every single time you take a bad trade, lose lane control. We're not talking about just hitting your spikes and going into the mid-game even, guys. You need to have control and first move. As any lane, basically. This can work on mid, top, bot lane. Figure out what you didn't understand about the matchup, why the enemies got lane control, what you could have done to prevent it, and how you could have improved the interaction. Watch matchup VODs. Once again, don't reinvent the wheel. Copy what works. What I see with a lot of these players is that when they don't understand the matchup, they try to like throw shit at the wall and just figure it out themselves. What you can do is just literally type in the matchup or like watch how any of a high elo player or streamer plays the matchup. Look at how they use their spells in regards to the enemy champion and ask yourself the question why they do that, and then just copy that and see if it works. Trust me, it will work 90% of the times.
Yep. And the last thing I want to say, just to wrap things up here, is what we covered at the beginning, right? It's all about contextualization now, guys. So both in game and out of game, and your whole mindset should be, when I'm making mistakes, don't focus on the pure execution of your champion now, right? More look at it as like, okay, what do these champions of the game want to do, right? Both on my team and the enemy team. Start to develop some familiarity, you know? Like in your review, look at, hey, I took this fight. Why did this fight go poorly? Be like, you know, like what about these other champions caused this fight to go bad? Or how did I get picked by Blitz, right? What did I understand about Blitz? Things like that, right? And that will give you a lot of leverage, because then your champion mastery is going to carry you across the finish line.
Absolutely. So we're moving on to the next bucket of ranks, which is Emerald 4 to Master 0 LP. And it's going to get interesting here, because the truth is, if you're in this elo range, you're getting pretty good at the game, okay? I'm just going to point out there, you're getting pretty good at the game. Don't get your ego checked up now, but you're getting there. So this stage of your league journey is all about how your champion interacts with not only the enemy team, but also with your team. You're going to really talk about win conditions, and we're going to need to expand our view of the game, start thinking bigger picture. How can we destroy the enemy nexus? What's your experience with players in this elo range, AJ?
Yeah, so just to kind of encapsulate this, right, in the previous set of ranks that we talked about, so gold to emerald, is about starting to understand what the other champions want to be doing, right, at a basic level. Now, this is where we're getting advanced, where, like, you should be able to describe at a fairly competent level what, like, your comp should be doing holistically when you add the parts up. Right. Yep. And so, yeah, what I've noticed a lot with these players is that the closer they approach the masters, the better they are at this. Right. It's kind of like a 1-to-1 correlation. So like an Emerald 4 player, I've had experience where they kind of really struggle still with being very sophisticated with what other champions do. But when I get to when there's like a master student, for better or for worse, they have very strong opinions on what the other champions want to be doing. Right.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the champion pool in this elo range. Since you're getting good at the game, we can finally start playing some big boy champs, okay? Yes. We're looking at the more challenging champs like Azir, Ryze. Yes. If you want to play LeBlanc, go and play LeBlanc. If you want to play Riven, go play Riven. Yasuo. Yeah. We're both mid laners, of course, but contextualize it in every role, of course. Right. So you can play almost anything, but do keep in mind that complexity does still matter. Don't get piled up with playing too many of these complex champs, because champion mastery is still incredibly important. You still want to focus on the game, on learning the game fundamentals, especially right now in this stage of your journey. So one complex champ max is what we recommend, and then have a pool of 2 to 3 champs, and you're going to be completely fine climbing. Now, you're getting good at the game. Like I said, you can be proud of that, but also keep your ego in check. There's still an immense amount that you do not know. And what we find with players in... I'm speaking for myself especially. You correct me if you find a different experience, right? But what I find with the players in this elo range is these are the players that actually get defensive in the reviews. When we're talking about ego in your solo queue climb, this is the elo range where if you are reviewing with someone, they constantly try to defend themselves and explain their thought process. Yes. I was thinking this, but I was thinking this, when I'm giving them like different alternatives for in their game. Or, hey, you should be doing this and this and this. look, you're in Emerald for the Master 0 LP range. I'm not going to go easy on you. I'm going to go a little bit harder. So if you fuck up a wave state, I'll tell it when you fuck up a wave state, right? And when a lot of people think, oh, but this is what I was thinking, and this is what I was thinking, and they can't really take the critique too hard. Very challenging to work with sometimes. What is your experience with these type of players here?
Yeah, so again, I want to contextualize everything together because I think it will make a lot of sense. And really what I've seen is that below Emerald, I think the players, for better or for worse, realize that they still have a lot to learn, right? Like they know that they're, you know, in the bottom percentile, that they're like, hey, like there's a lot for me to improve upon, right? I think above Masters, ironically, it's the same thing. It flips on its head, right?
Yeah.
Due to the Dunning-Kruger effect. You realize once you hit Masters and you play against Grandmaster challenges, wow, like I haven't even started.
Can't win.
Really, right? I can't win. So this Emerald 4 to Master range is this weird gray area where, like you said, you're objectively good. Like you're the top 10% of players, but you're not good enough to realize how much you're missing off the table, right? And so that leads, I think, naturally to more defensiveness because you feel like, hey, I have all this knowledge, right? And you haven't experienced the knowledge crumbling in front of you, right? That's the thing. So I 100% agree with you, and I've experienced that a lot myself. I remember I had a student, an NA student, where everything I would say, he would spend like double the time explaining his thought process, and I was like, dude, I already kind of know exactly what you were thinking. I'm already giving you critique based off of what you were thinking to begin with, right? So yeah, I've experienced it a ton myself as well.
So what's the thing that you got to recognize in this elo range is that there's a high likelihood that your ego is actually killing your climb, and that's keeping you hard stuck. In this elo range, you see the players that are like legit stuck, like perma stuck, and they can't get out until they fix this. I myself was stuck in this elo range for about 4 to 5 years. And for me personally, the reason why I was stuck was my ego. I was the guy that was blaming others. I was the guy that was scared of even reviewing my own games because seeing my own mistakes would hurt me. Losing a game would make me feel like I was a worse human being, not only a player.
Yeah.
My ego was extremely tied to my rank. Be very careful with that, guys. How was your experience with that? Why were you stuck in this elo range?
Yeah, so the reason why I was stuck in this elo range, so basically what happened is I kind of had an ego at first as well, because I went from silver to diamond and like 2 weeks of playing, 1 week of playing, right? So I was like, oh,
you played you played StarCraft, right? So you had previous MOBA.
StarCraft is an RTS, and it's adjacent, I would say, to a MOBA, but basically StarCraft 2 had a lot of stuff going on. Your mental stack was constantly filled, and I got to master the StarCraft 2. So I played League. The relative difficulty of silver in League, gold in League, to masters in StarCraft 2, it was so much easier. So I blasted my way to diamond, right, where the difficulty started to get comparable, and I got completely stuck. I was stuck in diamond for 8 years as a Yasuo main. I played Yasuo and like one other champ, a 2-trick, and I would cycle the other champ. I was stuck there for 8 years. I would like maybe peak Masters 0P, drop down. Maybe peak Masters, drop down. And what kept me stuck? It was ego, but I was very blindsided. I was a player that didn't know what I didn't know, right? It was like the Dunning-Kruger was going crazy. I would like lose a game, and I'd know that I should be doing something different, but I didn't know what. And I think my ego was preventing me from looking at stuff that wasn't related to Yasuo specifics. That was the problem, right? I was so just stuck with the Yasuo specifics. And so I got defensive myself. But it was like in a weird way. It was like defensive in terms of like, oh, I just need to get better micro. I need to get better micro, right? I need to use my windmill better like this, right? That's really what was killing me.
Yeah. Very, very, very common in this elo range. So keep that in mind, guys. And if you feel like, hey, this is me, try to just do some introspection and figure out why you're responding to certain situations. Try to go a layer deeper and figure out the root cause. Everyone has a slightly different one. Now, we're going to talk about speed of play, okay? Because if you want to get to the big boy leagues, you got to play way, way, way faster. And this is what we see with your general understanding of the game is there the moment you pass the emerald wall. You understand the game to a basic level. But what's going to happen is that a lot of players are actually very slow at recognizing the correct place. So when I do a review with like an Emerald 1 player, when I ask them a question, 9 out of 10 times, they do know the answer. But instead of that 1 to 2 seconds thinking time that it takes me or AJ, they need to spend 10 to 15 to 20 seconds thinking about the play. And they're like, yeah, this is actually true. It's good that you mention it right now, because I didn't see this in game, is something that I hear consistently. It's like a quote I consistently hear from these type of players. And that's normal. So what is the solution, right? Reviewing. If you're in this elo range, you need to drop the ego. You need to start reviewing heavily, because in the review, you do have this time, and you can use the review as a bit of a practice area, a bit of a sandbox area, where you can start learning to think and recognize the variables, but it's going to allow you to make that play faster. Speed matters. If you can be 1 second faster every single time, comparatively towards the enemy team, you're going to get area control. You're going to be faster on tempo plays. You're going to be able to collapse faster, catch people off guard. Massive difference maker. A really good way to put it in context is we're going to just compare it to the really high elo games. The difference between playing an average Grandmaster game versus a 10-player Challenger game, you said it so often to me. It's just that you get caught off guard by these minuscule things, and it just ruins your tempo. It's like these split-second decision-making things. How do you experience that?
Yeah, so I'll give an analogy, right? It's like, I've never done snowboarding before, but that's what I guess is how it works. There's different slope levels, right? There's the easy slope, there's the intermediate slope, and there's the black slope, right? And so really what speed is imagine it like that. You're on the easy slope and you can control it, right? You're going very slowly, right? It's not dangerous, right? You can control it. And then as you get to the intermediate one, which I would say is the Emerald 4, the master one, it starts to go quite a bit faster, right? It's intermediate, you can actually seriously get hurt, right? You have to be really careful. You're going at a pretty good speed. And then the games we play from Grandmaster to Challenger, right? Where I go from a Grandmaster level speed to Challenger, it's you're on the black slope. You make one mistake and you can fuck yourself up, right?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. That's really the best way to kind of describe that feeling.
Yeah, I love that. Very, very, very clear. And a big thing to note in this elo range is that you already mentioned it in the previous elo range from gold to emerald, is that a lot of players struggle to conceptualize their champion's kit being played differently depending on the game state. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, so we covered this last one, but this one's even more important than the previous one. It's I love this example because I remember, I so vividly remember this Emerald 4 Zed student where he was just so good at mechanically, but he kept diving Ezreal Tarek. Tarek had Locket, Ezreal had armor boots. That you're never killing Ezreal in that situation. And so notice how he would have to play that Zed differently than if there was a Santa Lux in the game, right?
Yeah.
He could have played the micro exactly the same 1-to-1. He probably would have carried a game where he was against Santa Lux, and the game where we reviewed Ezreal Tarek, his output was nothing, right?
Yeah.
He was not able to do anything in the game because his target selection wasn't correct because he wasn't conceptualizing his champion kit in that particular game.
Yep, makes total sense. So a final thing to note is in this elo range, you need to understand that the competition is increasing, okay? You're starting to verse players that are genuinely curious and have genuine hopes of making it big. There's a lot of players just coming into our program. They want to play competitive. They want to join an amateur team. They want to, show off to their friends. There's all type of motivations, but there's people that are very serious about the game in this instance. So if you want to climb in this elo range, you need to understand that you need to be at least as serious or more serious. So definitely do a bit of thinking of it. Is the effort that I'm putting in right now, is it enough to actually make progress? The player base is getting better year after year. So you need to make sure that you keep up if you want to play and climb in this elo range. So what are common mistakes in this elo range? Well, win condition assessment is not good enough or simply not being thought of. Asking yourself the question, what is my role? What is my win condition in the game? Can already go a really long way because most players have a decent understanding of the game. They just don't really know how to put that in perspective to the regarding game state. And the higher you go in this elo range, the more important it is actually going to get. They also know general and macro, and like I said, they have the time to think about it, but they're a little bit slow in their actual decision making during the game. So being very fast in your low state usage at gathering information and making decisions based upon that is going to be a massive catalyst to you being able to improve, because this opens up your feedback loop. And don't be shy at making the wrong mistakes, even in this ELO range, guys. Don't be shy about it. Just try to be a little bit faster. Make the wrong play if you have to. You'll learn from it. Now, they're also too happy taking the bad fights in this ELO range, right? Because of sometimes information gathering not being good enough or fast enough, while other players sometimes play at a little bit of a faster speed than them, they sometimes get overwhelmed, adapt to the speed of their teammates, and they might sometimes play bad fights. Be intentional. Take control of your game. We mentioned this in every single rank because it's so important that you make your own decisions and you don't just adapt towards your teammates, because you want to open up that feedback loop based upon your own decision making so you can actually learn from the plays that you're making. And the big thing that I see here in this ELO range is that the players, like I said, they know basic macro. They can gather information, especially about number advantages. They understand that. Yep. They understand also where the next neutral objective is most of the time and what that means. But what do these players not understand? Key cooldowns. How to abuse key cooldowns. How to abuse tempo. They don't recognize when an enemy hasn't reset yet, so they can just brute force a fight. Or they're too slow on the cross map. They contest the dragon while they're just out of position and the enemies have complete control. What else do you see in regards to this ELO range here?
Yeah, so I want to give a story for this because I think this perfectly encapsulates the mistakes in this ELO range. So the last month, I think I've had maybe 4 or 5 different Emerald or Diamond or Masters LP Azir players, different ones. They all have the exact same issues, okay? The first 10 minutes of lane, they understand that Azir wants to play for lane control and get to his Nashers. But what happens is there's a skirmish that happens and they move to it. They feel their laner moves, and then they feel scared that their team is going to die and the game's going to blow up before they get to the power spike, and they contest, right? They contest everything. All of them have that exact same issue, right? And again, my advice would be, hey, stick to your champion reference points and min-max your laning, right? But then the second thing, like you said, paying attention with RCDs, right? This goes kind of hand in hand because, like you said, thinking about tempo and the RCDs of the enemy champions and your champions can give you major advantage, but also the negative connotation is sometimes they're fighting without their own R. They're playing Azir, their R's 15 seconds, and I asked them, hey, why are you fighting without your R? And they're saying, oh, I didn't even think of that. I'm just fighting because my team's fighting, right? And so this is such a big problem in this ELO range where they just say yes to too many situations, right? Yeah. They're not confident in their champion's reference points that will carry them across the finish line, right? They feel like they have to do a lot, way too much.
Yeah, and I think a really interesting one is that because a lot of players in this ELO range play at different tempos, at different speeds, what you're going to find is that syncing up tempo is actually incredibly important, fundamental in this ELO range. Because your jungle might be faster at information gathering, might be faster at identifying that the Drake is next, but maybe you need to catch that extra top lane wave because you were too slow. Communication to get everyone on the same page is going to be so important to make sure that you can get over the finish line and kill the enemy nexus, because the players have a lot of ego in this ELO range. They will take that fight for V5 sometimes. They will just send it, or they try to outplay it in any type of way. So if you can communicate and sync up tempo with your team, I reckon that's a really, really, really big differentiating factor that's going to allow you to get over the bump and climb. Really funny story, by the way. I did a few coaching sessions over a large period of time last year with a player in the program, and he was hard stuck. He was hard stuck between gold and plat 4 for like 10 years. He was literally hard stuck gold plat 4 that ELO range.
Yeah.
In that period of time. What was the key thing that he didn't understand that got him over the edge and got him climbing through Emerald? Gathering information, right, on the next neutrals. And that still didn't bump him over the edge, but he got a little bit more consistent. He went to high plot. And the moment he really started climbing was when he started understanding how to sync up tempo. He would literally, his team would be setting up for a siege on the bot tier 2, and he would just be basing for his item. And I was like, my
I see that so much. I see that happening so often. Yeah.
Beautiful. And once
All
he
the time.
understood that, I think he hit his rank goal and he just quit the game from that point. He was like, I made it finally. After
Yeah.
10 years. Great. I mean, that's a great way to quit the game, honestly. If you can reach your rank goal and you're happy, I'm like, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. It's time for me to move on. All the love to you, man. Great stuff.
100%.
Now, common mistakes. I'm going to let you take this one away here.
Yeah, of course. So I've just been really passionate about this one. This is something I always teach my students, and it's really about you at this point you have a good idea what all the champions do, right? If we just list out all the champs, everyone can say like, oh, okay, Alistar is a melee support that wants to engage, whatever, right? Nautilus, the same thing. You know, Rengar is an assassin. He bursts someone. Like they know what the spells do, right? They know what all the abilities do, but they don't know how the champion wants to play. They're not putting themselves in their shoes. And I'm going to give a great example because my girlfriend actually, she's high emerald, low diamond elo range, right? And obviously I've been helping her a lot and trying to get her up, bump her up, right? And this is the main thing we've been focusing on. And so she understands that, okay, Rengar, like we'll take Rengar, for example. She's Ahri main, okay? So she understands that Rengar has the E for the root. He can heal with his W. His R is like, you know, a jump tool. He's strong level 6, yada, 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 right? But what she didn't understand is understanding how Rengar wants to play. The fact that Rengar really abuses Fog of War, really abuses picks in the side, right? It's really hard to face check a Rengar. So what would happen that game? I remember watching a game where she was against a Rengar. She died like 6 or 7 times to Rengar face checking Rengar because she didn't understand that's how a Rengar wants to play, right? And so this is the key, guys. You need to get that next level understanding of, okay, this is what their kit is, but like if you're Rengar, what are your reference points, right? How do you navigate a game as a Rengar? How do you navigate a game as a Thresh if you're a mid laner or if you're a top laner, right? And you play against Nocturne jungle. When does a Nocturne want to gank a top lane champion, right? How does a Nocturne want to play? Does he want to play into a tank or does he want to play into a bruiser, right? Starting to really dissect each champion will give you so much leverage at this elo range.
Perfect. Great explanation. So, translation of leads, where a lot of players... this is beautiful. I love this.
Yes.
It's so good. I see this every single time with especially assassin players in this elo range. Yep. They get ahead and then they cannot translate their lead because there's too many options, or they sometimes think that the game is in the bag already. Their ego takes over. They start playing on autopilot, and what happens is that they lose the game. And this is a really heavy throw elo because there's a lot of egos like taking over, what we already talked about. So if you can stand like on standby all the time, never go into autopilot, play on your max intention, make all the decisions, you're going to win a lot of games that actually were lost to begin with, and maybe it's even sometimes unrecoverable. I see this all the time in my coaching sessions. Anything that you want to add to this here?
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, again, we talked about it already. I just really want to highlight how important is syncing tempo, right? That's what causes sloppy transitions of leads and heavy throw, because you were sometimes too focused on like, hey, I got my Malignant spike, right? I'm going to go base. Or I got my Thunder Sky spike on Riven, I'm going to base. But in reality, like your team is literally taking a turret on bot side. So you need to be on the map, right?
Yep.
And this is where the leads, like it's all contextual based on what your teammates are doing pretty much, right? Yeah, you're not flexible enough. You're not paying enough attention to what is it that your teammates want to do.
Exactly. Because we talked in the previous segments, like Gold to Emerald, like it's about understanding how your champion interacts with the enemy champions in the game. And now we need to also understand that our Kindred jungle wants to fucking invade. So we need to play for prio and make sure that we do not let the enemy laner move for free, or otherwise your Kindred's plan is going to be totally fucked. And then we're getting into this flame and blame situation.
Yes.
Okay? That's so often.
Exactly. Yes.
So keep an eye on, try to also get curious on what does my team want to do, and ask yourself, what's my win condition? What does X champion want to do? And how does my champion interact with that? You need to gonna start thinking big picture, guys, because otherwise you will not get over this edge here. So the mindset issues that players in this elo range have are especially catered towards ego. Ego plays such a big role in this elo range, and if you can drop it and get genuinely curious about what's happening in your game, this is probably the best cure of climbing in this elo range. A lot of other mindset issues that we're going to talk about are in line with comparison to others, ego, and also taking accountability, because the players in this elo range are probably the most toxic towards their teammates, because they think that they understand stuff, but they're still hard stuck. And then when people don't play that well, they get very, very toxic. And what I see in my coaching sessions is actually a lot of fake positive players, where they like bring up with their review, and then as a coach, I'm just gonna be really honest, you can vibe. You feel it. You can tell when someone is being fake positive, or when someone is actually a little bit toxic. It's just the way they play the game. You can see that it's just, there's this emotional tone underneath it.
Yes.
It's also the way they talk and how they use their words against you. So what I sometimes have to do with these type of players is I have to just fucking tell them, okay, we're just gonna end the review right here. We're just literally not going to talk about your gameplay anymore, because it doesn't matter. Because there's an underlying issue that needs to be fixed first. We got to just be very honest here. If your mindset's not in the correct place, guys, it doesn't fucking matter what we're going to talk about in game. Because if you're going to be frustrated and you don't take any accountability, this is more of a blocker towards your learning and your improvement journey, rather than if you need to push that away for now. Right? Yeah. So I have some sessions with some players where I really just purely address the ego, or purely address specific mindset changes that they need to make. And they may not be happy with it at the immediate time when that session's happening. And I have some people saying to me after the session that they're not happy with the session. But guess what happens 3 weeks later, when they've actually been on their own, focusing on their solo queue journey, they actually come to the realization that, hey, maybe there is actually an ego problem. And recognizing it, even though that it may not be fun to recognize it, is step one. And it's going to, in the long term, put them towards the field of change. I actually had a session last week with a player that was insanely defensive during the sessions. He was constantly trying to explain their thought process whenever I was saying something. We couldn't even make any progress through the game because there was all these blockers that he was saying. I said, dude, just with a very nice way. Okay, I said, hey, do you recognize how you're responding to me right now in the sense to what you're saying? You are constantly trying to defend yourself. Don't feel offended by me giving critique or feedback on your gameplay. And that's when it was for him the realization, like, whoa, you're right. They don't even recognize it most of the time that they're being defensive and that they have an ego in that sense, because recognizing it is already like the first step of like solving it, right? So otherwise it probably wouldn't be there if they could solve it themselves. So you don't recognize that it's there, but it's there. I've been yapping enough about this. It's really fun. It excites me as a coach, but a lot of people are probably thinking, then we know it right now. Let's continue here. Too many complex champs, right? Same with the ego. People think they can play too many of the big boy champs. You can play one, guys, but don't do too many. It's a big problem in your gameplay. Now, still speaking generalizations, what do you think about this, AJ?
Yeah, so one thing I've noticed a lot with elo range is, like, again, you're no longer in the little kids pool, right? There's no room for generalizations anymore. There's no just what I realized a lot in this elo, people are looking for X solution. So I actually had a student yesterday where I did a boot camp with him, which is like a 2-hour coaching session. He wasn't super happy with it because I gave him very specific stuff, right? And he wanted generalizations, and he's been messaging me, and we had a talk yesterday, and he was like, oh, well, like, how do I implement the stuff you're doing? Like, what's the magical answer? And I'm like, dude, there is no magic answer anymore. There is no general, like, hey, as Mouse, you need to push your wave and move. Like, there's no generalization anymore, right? He's the Yasuo main for context. I was like, you need to get specific into every single game. You need to understand, how do you take small wins, right? How do you understand how gank oriented their jungle and support are, right? Are you taking the time to develop those skills, right? Are you getting specific with the matchup? When do you spike in this matchup? When do you play for push? When do you play for push and move, right? Because he was in the mindset of, like, okay, generally speaking, as Yasuo, I have to kill my laner. That was the generalization he had. And he got to Master 0 LP, right? So he's definitely a skilled player. And I told him, dude, you can't generalize like that. And maybe against Swain, you need to play more for the wave, right? Maybe, against the Katarina, you could freeze it on your side or go for Chung so she can't roam. He needs to get to that level of specificity. right? And that's what I see all the time in this elo. They're trying to look for a magical, generalized answer instead of getting specific into the nitty-gritty of the details of each game you're in. Think of each game as a new art piece, right?
Yeah.
A new thing, new canvas for you to paint.
Yeah, I love that. And to follow up on that Yasuo example that you mentioned, what you see with a lot of these players is that they're quite good at executing that thing that they've practiced. Like, for example, solo killing the enemy laner. And then the reason they're a 50% win rate and they can't actually climb is because they are solo killing their laner every single game. But then in 50% of the games, they get spam ganked because the enemies have a Lee Sin. And in the other games, they have a Karthus, which cannot gank at all. So that's why the results vary so much.
No, you're spot on. 100%.
Love it. So how about this year with their emotional slingshots?
Yeah, so I think I'll actually take my own story here. So because I was so improvement oriented, I actually had this pedestalization of higher ranks, right? I would think, oh man, like Masters is just the cream of the crop. Like they're so good. Like I'm so worried about them, right? And then I'll get to Masters, and because everything was tied to my emotion and my perception rather than reality, I would play, and there'd be some not so good Master players. There'd be some amazing ones and some not so good. So I had this emotional slingshot. Because I'd be like, wow, the players I idolize are not that good, which means how bad am I then, right? And then I would just put myself in this big emotional roller coaster, and I would swing from like Master 0 LP to D5 back when there was 5, right? Back to D1, back to D3, right? I would just slingshot around because my emotional level would just be like, I would like forget how like this skill level of a Master player when I would drop down, come back, and just put them on a pedestal, then realize they're not that good, and my ego would be completely in the way.
Yeah. The thing you got to also keep in mind is that whenever we're talking about this elo range here, there is some unique players that have very specific skill sets, okay? You can climb to this level of play by brute forcing just on hands. You're gonna get stuck in this elo range here, by the way. This is if you just brute force only on hands, this is where you get stuck. But that's what happens. You might sometimes verse the Yasuo that is just insane wave management, insane mechanics, and he's just fucking solo killing you on repeat. Moves into mid game, dude's like just walking around with a blindfold and completely lost on the map, right?
The Sin cosplay.
Absolutely. So keep that in mind, guys. The fact that you get gapped in lane every once in a while doesn't mean that you're a worst player. It's just the way that the game plays out.
Skill level.
Yes.
Of each player you're playing against.
Everyone's different. Now, final thing, right? Players in this elo range have fake review process most of the time, where they know what they should be looking at. They actually have a little bit better understanding of what their weak points are and what they need to do to improve. They just can't fucking do it. They just cannot open up that review and look at their own gameplay because it hurts too much. Because their ego gets hit every single time that they see a mistake. It actually hurts. And it's very common, right? The only way that you got to go about it is changing your relationship with mistakes and changing your relationship with yourself. I had a guy reach out to me. I handed it on the silver platter. This is what you need to do in the review. You're going to review 2 abilities that you missed. It was a Zinra player that was constantly missing E usage. I just want you to look at 2 E's that you missed in the lane every single game. The bar's not that high, right? Yeah. Everyone can do that. And he still couldn't do that. Why? Because it was hurting him. He couldn't look at his reviews like that. So what I told him to do is you need to see these E's that you miss as not like as a mistake, because this player knew that he shouldn't throw the E like that. He still throws the E like that, and he beats himself up over it. And what then happens is that you need to change your mindset when it comes to this mistake. You need to be more kind towards yourself. And next time that you miss an E in your game, don't feel bad about missing the E. Even I miss fucking E's while I've played thousands of Zinra games. Instead, smile at yourself and laugh about, fuck, missed that E again. Well, let's go into review and figure out why I missed it.
I love that.
So that's a great way of taking accountability, guys. Anything you want to add to this elo range here?
Yeah, so I would say like this can't look at your own gameplay is a byproduct of all the other things above this, right? Your ego gets in the way. You might be playing too many complex champs that makes you feel overwhelmed, right? You might still be generalizing, which means you're not getting specific enough, so you're not finding specific things to work on, and you might be on an emotional roller coaster, right? And so my practical solution to be able to review your gameplay, because like we've been saying, it's so vital, is you need to dissolve the ego from the review. So I want you guys to imagine you have a best friend that plays the exact same champions as you, that's around your elo range, and you're watching their gameplay, right? You would have no problem reviewing the two missed Syndries. No problem, none. It would be so easy for you to do it, right? So why is it hard? Because you're looking at your own gameplay. So you need to imagine that the gameplay you're watching when you watch yourself back is like, imagine you're reviewing a friend, right? If this was a friend you genuinely cared about them getting better, what would you say to them in this moment, right? That's what I do to myself, right? Because imagine yourself as a friend to yourself, as weird as that sounds, right? You're just helping yourself out, right? Long term.
Yeah,
So
I love
that
this.
was my practical advice.
So good. But this is such good advice, actually. I want to piggyback on that, because a lot of players, even though that they hear this, are still thinking or like trying it, and then they still recognize they can't do it, even with trying to change that mindset. You know what a fix is, guys? Review the day after. Don't feel the need to review directly after your game. You can just review the day after. Your emotional response to the game is gone, and you can just do it on a fresh slate, and then you won't even feel as much as it of your own gameplay, because you forgot parts of it already, because it's the day after you slept about it. Massive review hack, guys, for this elo range.
100%.
Amazing. So for learning objectives in this elo range, what is really important is that we figure out why stuff happens the way that it does and how we can fix that. So I'm going to start a little bit with this out-of-game learning objective that I give. About 50% of my Emerald to Master review sessions, I cover the micro-macro framework, because what happens in this elo range is that it's all about being able to take good quality fights and setting that up through good quality information gathering and micro execution. It really makes a big difference. So what you're going to find is that a lot of people understand when they take fights and when they not take fights, but they go for the fight and it just barely doesn't work out the way that they wanted to. Going back to that intention. And what you then need to figure out is what underlying variables led to that fight going wrong. A really good example I can give you guys is a lot of RE players in this elo range, they use their W for move speed before the fight, and then the fight's actually happening, and they don't have the W off. And guess what happens? They barely miss out on that first kill, don't get the reset, and the fight goes to shit because they didn't have W.
I have it all the time.
And if you just go over that in the review by applying the micro-macro framework, which is just first looking at your micro in a fight, and then looking at the macro in the fight by going 30 to 60 seconds back, and then ask yourself, what could I have done differently, or what are the key variables that led to this fight happening the way it does, and then getting curious and finding solutions. See every fight, see every nasty moment in the game as a learning opportunity, as a small puzzle for you to solve. You're going to put yourself in the right position. What other learning objectives stand out to you in this elo range?
Yeah, the biggest one for in-game, I really want to highlight the in-game stuff, is forcing the enemy to respond to waves. Now, this is probably more specific to 80, like the laners. Jungle may be still important, but not as important. But for you laners, right, is the idea that before you make a play, you want to force the enemy to have to make a lose-lose situation. Either do they drop the wave and drop positioning to move to the play, or are they just not going to be in the fight, right? And the way you do this, you force the enemy to respond. I say this all the time, and this gives the most success out of any specific tangible learning objective I give in game. It's, okay, let's say you're playing this here. It's like, before you move to that dragon, push the wave all the way top, wait until you visibly see someone have to defend that wave, and then you move. And if no one is responding to you, then you stay top, right? And that is the biggest piece of advice I can give to people. Is like, is really making sure you're starting to apply the rules of the game to your favor, if that makes sense. Because that's the core premise of the game. It would be just like in chess, it's all about the pawns in chess, developing your pawns. The same idea in League. You want to develop your minions. Get your minions out and then move to plays. It's so important, and it gives the most learning, the most improvement out of any specific learning objective I can give someone.
Yeah, I love that. And a really good way to piggyback off that is that I think the sole reason why I climbed so effectively to Challenger this year was because I was really good at this. I played Champions, Rise, and I played Victor. And I itemized in such a way that I always got side lane prio in the isolated lane matchup. I consistently matched my side lane opponent so that I was winning in the 1v1. I was consistently pushing them in. And with the new Fey lights, I placed my wards on these Fey lights. I had perfect vision over everyone. I could not get collapsed upon. So I was always playing on my terms. And I just went to challenge with a 63% win rate. Just easy. It just was easy. Insane.
Love it.
And to give you guys a little bit of perspective for the rest of Season 16, if you watch this in the future, all the future seasons of League as well, this is going to be so important because the level of the game is increasing. So if you can get control of your individual lane matchup and use that to force enemies to respond and create your own plays, you're always going to be in control of your own learning journey. And it's going to be probably one of the most important fundamentals to look at in the near future. Anyone else, any other learning objectives that stand out to you here, AJ?
The only other big one that I would say is the communication. What I've really noticed from myself, when I compare myself to players of this ELO range, they are not pinging what they want to do enough. It's either they don't know, like we talked about, they're too slow to recognize what they should be doing, right? Or they know, but they're not confident. Or they just haven't built the habit of pinging. What I've noticed for me is like when I want to do something, my instinct is to just like spam ping it. It's like, okay, I want to push top. I'm spam pinging, I'm pushing top, right? If I'm playing Aurora and I want to go for Fog of War pick on mid before Dragon, I'm spam pinging that. But what I notice a lot of players with ELO range is like they kind of know what they should be doing, but since they're not 100% confident, they're not pinging, right? So this is so important, guys. Like when you go into the review and you look in hindsight when you have a freed up mental stack and you recognize like, hey, this is something I really wanted to do. Look for your pings. Were you actually communicating what you wanted to do? Are you taking control of the game? Are you being a passenger, right? Are you letting the game happen around you? Or are you the one making stuff happen?
Yep, syncing tempo, like we mentioned, incredibly important. So the final ELO range is going to be Master Plus. Very interesting part of your climb. There's many different ways how you can climb through here, but also many different ways of why you can get stuck. Let's just dive straight into it. Now, this stage of your journey is all about understanding on how your champion interacts with your team and the enemy champions and the enemy team, and also how your team interacts with the enemy team. So we're looking at the biggest viewpoint of the game. You need to understand how everything interacts with like an individual web. Let's just basically draw how that looks like. So this is your team on the pink, and we got the enemy team on the yellow. And I'm now going to draw the lines of what you need to truly understand to climb in this ELO range. So you need to understand how your champion interacts with the enemy team. You need to understand how your champion interacts with your team. And you need to also understand how the individual champions interact from your team and the enemy team. But you also need to understand how this entire team composition interacts with this team composition. A lot of things to think about. And it's sometimes winning or losing a game is just as simple as identifying how your team plays out the game versus the enemy team. I can name countless examples of Master 100 LP players playing as a flexible champion like Ahri, right?
Yep.
And what happens is that they are very drawn to just fighting every team fight on neutral objectives. But guess what happens? The enemy team has a Seraphine, Ashe, Xin Zhao, and you've got a Zed jungle. And you're playing Ahri, and you got a Queen top. And if you got a team fight into the enemy team like that, you have 0% chance of winning the fight because of how the champions interact with each other.
Yeah.
What do you see in this ELO range, AJ? Fucking everything, but let's just...
everything. Well, I said what we'll do is I'll draw my own experiences and juxtapose, okay? So obviously, I'm like high challenger, but what happens when you're in high challengers, you get some games where it's 10 high challengers, you get other games where I'm a challenger, enemy team is a challenger, and then both teams have 4 masters, right? Yeah. So what I noticed in the high challenger games is that everyone knows what every other champion wants to be doing down to the T, like crystal clear. Like a jungler who has never played Azir can tell a master player how to play Azir better than the master player could, right? And so what happens is that the speed of the plays are really fast. The cross map is just like this because they know exactly what champion to play around, right? They know exactly when to contest or give. They know exactly when to invade. They know what to do when their team doesn't have prio or when they do have prio, right? They know when to dive. They know all of that, right? And the game is very, very precise and clean and like not formulaic, but like predictable given all the champions in the game, right? And then what happens is when I play in a game where there's masters, it's like the Wild West, right? It's like the people are diving like the wrong lane. Like people are trying to dive a set top, right? With a Nocturne who's like behind 3 levels, right? There's like a mid lane Rise who's like taking Ignite and not playing for push and move and trying to solo kill his laner, right? It's just a complete Wild West, and people are not like really having a pure, just crystal clear understanding of like what is happening in this game, right? What should be happening in this game. The holistic thinking is just not 100% there yet. It's just not there.
Yeah. There's a lot of mechanics maxers in Master Tier.
Yes.
It's really fun to play versus those players because you get challenged in lane by for example, a mechanics maxer, and then you get towards like the bigger picture and you get in these transition periods of the game from lane into mid game, and there just suddenly you find yourself versus the enemy top laner who is playing, for example, Victor versus a Quinn top, and then that guy is playing versus your Jax and he's playing Yasuo, and then just the game explodes because the side lane assignments are just fucking unplayable. Right?
Yeah.
Really, really funny. So your champion pool in this stage, you can go a little bit bigger. You can take a little bit more complex champs. You can play ±3 champions. Do keep in mind that you still want to play with a high champion mastery on your champ. You can't just go ahead and say, I'm going to play Aurora, Azir, and Yone right now. And just have genuine success with it. I just called out your pool right there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So the reason why that's the case is because you need a lot of champion mastery and a lot of fundamental game understanding. If you don't have that and you're at Master 0 LP and you're going to think like you're going to climb with this pool, you can forget it. Because just to put it in context, you're going to first be. I'm your competition right now. And I've got about 2,000 games on Syndra. Right? And if you lock your Yone versus 2,000 games Syndra, there's a 0% chance that you're gonna win. Okay.
Yeah.
So you gotta put it in perspective. There's freaks, dude, in this Edo range. There's freaks. You got like million mastery level points on certain champs.
Yeah.
And the amount of champion mastery. Imagine you play against Elite 500, dude, who's got some freak like that, with just that many games on a champion that they know every single minute interaction, where they know exactly where to stand in the lane. You can pick the hardest counter pick. You can counter pick this guy with Ryze. He's still going to solo kill you because of the raw experience that he has in this matchup. You bet that he got counterpicked by pro players on that champion. Now, you come up as Jimmy into the same matchup, you're going to get fucking blasted.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So that's why we got to go deeper and not wider. And you're a big advocate of this, right? You love this. Well, why is this so important?
Yeah, so really what you guys need to be doing is become an expert at the very small things, right? Like, so I'll give you guys a clear example where I got the challenge of the Yone main. I became an expert at the very minute details of Yone because I went really deep. It was like, when do you use W in your E? In this matchup, at what point do I press W? How close to the enemy can I be to guarantee my R, right? Eing diagonally to get me that extra 0.5% distance to allow me to land my Q3. This level of detail is what allows me to become an expert, right? And really focus on like the minute details. That's how you become the elite 500 of your champion, right? You go very, very deep on a specific skill. I'll spend like 4 or 5 minutes watching like 2 minutes of the game, right? I'll just keep replaying it, right? And in terms of the language and how you talk to yourself, guys, you want to have very specific language. It's like, okay, in this particular moment with this items, this is what I should be thinking about, rather than just like high level. It's like, oh yeah, like I should just go side lane, right? Look at that language difference, right? I should just go side lane versus a Yasuo. When I'm Yone, I have Bork and I took exhaust this game, which means I can win side against him. I'm going to force him to react to me, and then I'm going to have first move because I have a Malphite, and now we're going to combo our R's. Look at that language difference. That gives me a much more clear and crystal understanding of what I should be doing, rather than just like, yep, I'm Yone, I should go side.
Yeah.
That's how you should be speaking to yourself.
This is the period of your journey where you got to go into the why, really go into the why, like extremely deep into the why. And if something of your current belief system or your current worldview or league view doesn't line up with reality, don't just brush it off. Try to understand what exactly is the difference and what makes this not work the way that I want to. really good examples is, for example, how I like to review the pros. What I do is I review their game and I picture myself playing their champion on the screen, thinking as if I'm in that game. And if they do something that I would not do, I pause the VOD and I try to figure out, okay, why would they do that? Is this something that they're intentionally doing? Are they just making a mistake? Because they sometimes do make mistakes. I never make mistakes, but they sometimes... Joking around here. But then you can get to the understanding of why they make certain decisions, and you can then change your own understanding of the position and then improve your understanding of the game. Now, like we mentioned before, some Master Tier players, a lot of players get into Master by just having different skill set. There has to be a fundamental understanding of the game, but there's players that excel. I'm going to just call out a few names here. Marvin's, right? Player in our coaching program, insane hands. Yasuo OTP, that guy can solo kill challenger players on this champion. That's how good he is on the micro on Yasuo. But then when it comes to tempo, it comes to understanding of mid-game, of information gathering in the low states, he is just not at the level of where he can actually consistently climb. So we'll get a solo kill or two. He will do massive stuff, but then he's at the point where he actually cannot take that consistency and climb through Master. So you might just be, as an average Master Tier player, let's say you have all your fundamental skill brackets on an average Master 0LP level, you might just play into that guy with that insane hands, and you're going to be like, what just happened to me? Like, I just went 12 deaths in the lane and there was nothing I could do against it. But then you don't see that same player actually has weaknesses that in that game don't come to fruition. What is your experience in this elo range with players?
Yeah, I love what you said. So people have a wide specific skills. You're 100% right. And one of the students actually from EU, he is like really, really good at lane. He's really good at micro. He's really good hands in lane. And he says he plays in competitive and like he can like do well in lane against grandmasters and challengers, right? And I'm like, okay, well, so what's going on? And then we look at his gameplay, and his mid game, he just completely lost in mid game, right? He doesn't know how to force the enemy to react, right? He doesn't know when to stay in the side versus when to move, right? He's moving too early to plays. He's grouping over a neutral objective that shouldn't be contested, right? And maybe his champion mastery isn't even there, even though it's like weird because his raw clicks is good, but then his champion mastery isn't. Like, so the way his champion interacts with other champions isn't, right? And so that's why he's masters, and that's why he says like, hey, I can actually match against grandmasters and challengers, because maybe he can in lane. Maybe he has good enough clicks where he can do that, right? But then the rest of his gameplay falls short. And so this happens all the time in Master. And this is why, guys, the practical advice is you follow your feelings in Masters. Every single game, you might have a different problem every single game, right? Even though there might be a trend and you have specific skills you excel at, every game, because each one is so different based off of all the champions in the game, you're going to have something different that felt bad in that game. And target that and go deep on that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just expose myself here, right?
Yeah.
I am such a player as well. When I'm at my best, like my laning is freak level sometimes. And what happens is that I was, for example, I was stuck in Masters like 2 years ago, right? I was stuck at like, back then it was like the borderline GM. Back then it was still 600 LP GM, and I was like 500 LP, you know, in the good times. But I was like stuck, and that's when the point where I was just consistently investing in lane. And the only thing I could think about is, how do I make my lane even better? I'm not getting ahead enough. And I remember I came to you because I was so frustrated at that point. I was like, AJ, how can I not win the game when I'm laning like this? And we did some reviews together, and you just told me you fucking grilled my mid game, dude. You fucking grilled my mid game. There was so much to work on in my mid game. But I remember we did like a session like once every 3 to 4 weeks together. And over the course of the next couple of months, we were just chipping away at my mid game one by one. We just completely forgot about my laning, and just suddenly I would just shot up to Challenger immediately by fixing those bad points of my gameplay. And it's something that I am actually just learning now also with other players, is that whenever you enter Master Plus, the cap of the mid game, guys, holy shit, it's like next level.
Yeah.
And you've really invested in mid game. Tell us about your experience, also what you see with coaching players that enter Master
Tier. So let's actually start with this is perfectly encapsulates the dilemma a Master Tier player has. So let's take even you, for example, right? Because I actually remember, right, that you were very hesitant to get external feedback, right?
Oh yeah, completely.
I remember it took you a while to actually come to me. Because I remember I reached out to you because I was like, "Hey Tim, I know you're struggling. Like, you need help," and it took you a while. So I think Master, and I know part of it was because you're a coach, but this just shows that like in Master Tier Elo, because you genuinely know a lot about the game, it can be hard to want to get holistic help, right? And so that's like the first thing is like be okay with getting help, guys, right? Don't feel ashamed that to reach out for help, right? And get external feedback. Talk to your friends that are under Elo range who have a similar mindset as you, right? And ask for feedback. And like you said, what I see a lot with players in the mid game, because mid game is so complicated, a lot of players could be like, yeah, I'm okay at mid game, I'm gonna brush it off, right? But in reality, that's where you win most of your games, right? I would say it's like, yes, you use your lane lead to make the mid game easy, but if you don't know what you're doing in mid game, it doesn't matter how big of a lead you get. And I think that's what allowed me to become a very high elo player, because I wasn't the best laner, but I had really, really good mid game. And so what I see with students is they're not pushing sides out all the way. They're not forcing reaction. They're not getting the right lane assignments, right? And it just becomes a mess. It becomes a Wild West, right? I see this all the time with players, and I saw it with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Completely. A really fun fact is that right now, like the moment I hit Challenger, I usually take a little bit of a break of actually climbing and pushing through a league. My game count drops a little bit. And what I do is I mainly try to focus on content creation, right? Making the best possible content for everyone. That's the most educational. Now, what happens is that my laning and my hands actually takes a significant hit. And that is like one of the main reasons why I'm still just able to take so much control in the game and still perform at a high level. But the reason why I'm now just winning all those games when I'm doing educational content is because my ingrained understanding of the mid game is now actually what's carrying me, instead of my hands, where I just try out the shit out of spacing every spell, baiting out every spell, and getting these minute lane needs. Because you can't do that whenever you're commentating over your game. You need to have full lock-in on your on your gameplay if you need to do that. So what I found is that the real reason why I was able to eventually climb from Master Plus to like the next level of gameplay in Challenger is actually your understanding of the mid game and your ingrained understanding of how the game especially flows. Because once you get to that point, it isn't just individual plays anymore. It's just the entire flow of the game. You can just feel it. The moment you get to that level, you can just feel that you're in control. It feels like you're in control. That's how I experience it. And even if you're behind, you feel parts of control because you know what to do. How do you experience that?
Yeah, so I think really what a mid game is this beautiful dance between understanding exactly what your champion wants to be doing, right, at all times, understanding what your teammates want to be doing, understanding what the objectives are, and understanding what the enemy wants to do. So the clarity comes from, it's like, imagine you're finishing a jigsaw puzzle, right? You can't see the full picture, but as you add piece by piece by piece, you can start to fill in the gaps, right? And then the picture becomes more and more and more clear. So that's what it feels like when I play in the mid game at my level of play now, right? Unless I'm in a high challenger game, like if I'm in a lower elo game, it feels like I see the entire picture. I've filled all those puzzles now, right? It takes me 5 seconds to look at a comp. I know exactly what both comps want to do. I know exactly what Azir should be doing, or Yone or Andy should be doing in the mid game, and how every champion kind of interplays with that. And then once you have that puzzle, it becomes effortless. You ping everything, you know when to reset. It doesn't matter if your team takes a bad fight. You don't care. You're completely unbothered by it. And the games just play themselves, kind of.
Yeah. And now this is so good that you say that. Like, map state calibration. Let's just put it out here. The moment you get to that understanding, you start knowing where people are on the map before they even show up. What are great examples of low master tier players versus the GM and challenger players that we're reviewing? Whenever there is a low master tier player, they get caught off guard by a support roam. What do support players do whenever they push out a wave and reset? They're not directly walking to bot most of the time. They're opening up through mid. If you recognize that by gathering that information and you have seen all these patterns in the past, you know that they're opening a mid, so you change your way that you play the wave. It just completely changes the dynamic of the game. It flows.
Yeah.
You don't get caught off guard by the gank, and you can go continue. But if you die through that gank, the game is just gone, dude. It's just a massive...
Yeah, completely cooked. Even getting chunked, like even losing 40-50% of your health, your lane is over.
Yeah, let's not even start talking about understanding if you can push that extra side wave or not.
Yeah.
That one side wave can just literally be the difference maker between winning or losing the game. Man.
Yeah. and guys, this is where the small details, you cannot underestimate small details. This is now the point where, you know, people stereotype, you call like players who really invest in a game sweaty. This is where you guys have to become sweats, right?
Yeah.
This is where every single small detail needs to be analyzed to that degree. Where that one wave, as weird as that sounds, that could be the difference maker, right? Yeah. That could be the difference maker.
Yeah, you have no idea how many reviews I did with like this Thalia player, Jesse, in the program. Great guy.
Yeah.
And also with Daniel, also the Thalia player in our program. With these Thalia players, it's all about chopping and moving on the right timers, right? With the ult. So that one side lane wave is literally the difference maker between them winning and losing the game. So exciting. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So speed up your play even more, guys. Every second counts. You got to keep in mind that incrementally, the higher you're going to go, the faster the game is going to play out. And you will also get caught off guard by clear timers, junglers being hovering on side lane, overloading side lane waves. You need to have like an understanding of where everyone is and be fast about making your plays. Now, we just want to point out a harsh truth, right? If you want to climb in this elo bracket, like genuinely want to make progress, you're going to need coaching, okay? And here's why. There's competition, okay? And I'm just going to put it out there and contextualize it with us. I am studying, playing this game every single day, all day, because it's my job. There's streamers that have this as a job. They play it all day, every day. And you got to keep in mind that Challenger and Grandmaster, it's a set amount of players. So there is a rate of improvement that everyone has. And if you're not matching that, let alone increasing that because you're below that at the moment, you will never get there. It's that simple. In EU, we have an ERL system where there's a bunch of teams and there's literally players tryharding to get to that top level of play. So you need to have, and these players have coaching staff, they've got the fucking psychologists, dude, they got everything that allows them to climb. Yeah. So if that's your competition, and you're not matching that level of sweat, tryhardness, you can forget getting to that next level. You can forget it, right? So you got to have a clear conversation with yourself right now where, do I want to reach GM or Challenger?
Yeah.
Right? Is this something that you really want? And if the answer to that question is yes, then ask yourself, what player do I need to become? Not just in-game, but also outside of game. What do I need to do to get to that level where I can actually match that improvement speed or become even faster? And I can guarantee you guys, and I see it with many players that are also in our program, right? In our program, right, we help the players climb, but it's sometimes even hard for some players there to actually get to that level because the level of improvement is just so fast, so hard. What do you reckon in this?
I'm really passionate about this topic. I could go on with this for on and on, so I'll try to contain myself here. But
go ahead.
to start with, right? I really love what you said. It's a fixed pool, so you're no longer like playing for yourself. It's compared to everyone else. So I want you guys to view it like this, okay? If you want to become a challenger, so rank 300. Let's say you want to become a low challenger, rank 300. That means you need to outperform every single player below you consistently. You need to be able to beat every other Grandmaster player. You need to win more games than them consistently because you're going to play against them over and over and over. So there's no hiding. You cannot hide anymore. You cannot play against somebody that is better than you and still climb because you're going to keep playing against them over and over and over, right? Like if you have poor laning, you're not hiding anymore. You have to improve your laning. And so this is what I tell students. And every time I say this to someone, their jaw drops because they don't believe me. But this is true from my own experience. I would say getting from Master's your LP to Grandmaster, like mid Grandmaster, is probably more difficult than a new player getting to Diamond. I think that,
for sure.
Like not even close. Like I would bet that it would probably take half the time, maybe even less than that, for a true player. You take someone who's never touched League before to get to Diamond than for someone from Masters LP to get to Grandmaster. That is how much effort you need to put in. And if you're not willing to put in that effort, you need to reevaluate. Is climbing through Master something I truly want? Do you like the idea of getting a Grandmaster, or do you like the actual grind itself? Because if you don't love the grind, you're not passionate and excited like how we are to get into the small niche details, forget it. You're just not climbing. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You could be low masters and be happy with that, but don't expect anything more than that if that's not what you're willing to do.
One thing that stands out to me is, why are we even making this video? We're helping our competition.
Yeah.
We should make this video. It's gonna make it harder for us to climb, dude. If you're on EU West and NA, log off right now. You're not allowed to see the rest of this video.
Go to Australia. Go to Curtis.
So, common mistakes in this Elo range. Well, we could go on and on and on about like everything, because everything needs to improve, and I just want to point that out there. But here are the key things that we see in this Elo range. We're going to start with a little bit of laning and just being one-dimensional. The difference that what I see, especially because I've played in many different levels of Masters, of course, doing my educational content, which is really hard to do in a challenger game because of how fast that the game actually goes. You can't explain stuff. The level of laning is just incomprehensible to challenger. Yeah. The reason why that's the case is because of the small battles, the psychology, and the movement battles that are going on that are just not being played at an average level of master tier. I remember I played a game versus, I think it was Power of Evil, or Abadagge. I played versus Abadagge. You know, he also played in NA, right?
Yeah, I played against him. Yep.
I played for Zim this year, and I played for Zim 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I got like slapped into the ground, like just destroyed, pummeled, like 50 CS gap. This year, it was actually completely opposite. I played a good match. I played Victor into Aurora. I was winning every movement battle, baiting out his Qs, faking the right CS, and I was just completely dumpstering him in the lane because of me learning what the psychology in lane looks like, because I'm a big lane freak. Everyone knows it already, but I'm talking about lane. I love lane, dude. Yep. Lane is just my piece of cake. And because of me getting into the details and now understanding how these movement battles work out and how the psychology works out of faking CS, knowing which minion to out-attack and which minion not to out-attack, there's just so many concepts that Master T players are not thinking about.
Yes.
Just not think about it. And if someone's thinking about it and the other player's not thinking about it, it's just, you can't beat it. It's literally not playable. You cannot win. It's impossible. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, guys. You need to learn it. Watch educational content. Ask questions. Be curious. And really try to watch high-level player thoughts by just looking at what they're exactly doing. And if this is something that you wouldn't do, go really deep. Why are they out-attacking this minion instead of that minion? Yeah. It goes as deep as that, guys. Might sound crazy, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you see in the mid game, in the macro and in tempo especially?
Yeah, so one thing I'm noticing is, again, syncing is actually still a problem, but to a more specific level. It's like, who do you want to be syncing with, right? Do you want to be syncing with your jungler or your fed bot? And getting really, really specific with setting up in advance. It's no longer just looking at what you see right away. It's, you should be thinking 1 minute in advance. Like, in the next minute, I'm going to two-wave crash, reset with my jungler because he's going to finish his clear and then be on the map, right? That's the level of sophistication you need to have in the mid game and your macro and your tempo. You need to... It's no longer about what you see on the screen. It's like you should visualize what should happen in the next 30 to 40 seconds, right? Don't be too one-dimensional. Don't be like, okay, I'm Ari, I'm just going to push every wave. Maybe you want to actually keep this wave neutral so you can stack it to get a better reset, right? And something else I see a lot that's really, really common is that players are not being creative enough with their champion. Now, this is something really hard to articulate and express, but it's like you're not really taking your champion's kit to the next level, right? So I'll give you again an example with Yone, right? So one thing with Yone is using your R before your Q3, right? Because that guarantees your Q3. So it's like that kind of creativity. Like sometimes what I'll do is I'll stay in Fog of War, I'll stack my Q3 off Raptors in mid game because I know the enemy team is going to contest mid. I'll E over the wall into mid, R, they'll flash it, boom, Q3, go for a pick, and then I kill them. That is what I mean by creativity, guys. You have to do stuff that other players would never think of doing on your champion, right? You need to think outside the box, and you need to get really, really, really sophisticated with like, how does my champion's kit actually work to the absolute highest level? The other thing that I see a lot, both in laning and in mid game, is anticipation, right? When I play and I lane and I do commentaries, I will literally say exactly what will happen before it happens, right? I remember I played against the rank 5 Akali player, 3,000 LP, 75% win rate. I was playing Ari, okay? I purposely walked up into his R range because I knew if I was Akali, I would want to R Ari down the long lane. My lead was behind me. My lead queued him from Fog of War, R'd him, we killed him, and we won a 2v3, and we won the game off of that.
So common.
It's all about anticipation. You have to be thinking about, like you said, the psychology about it, both in fighting, both with your movement, both in mid game. You have to be thinking about what would the enemy champion be doing if you were them. What do they want to be doing?
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. Let's start with this baiting, right? And this is a very, very, very common thing, is that sometimes what you can do is, if you know how the enemy is going to interact, because you've read their plays and the way that they make their trades in the lane and how they play the game, you can use it against them by baiting them in by, for example, one thing I really like to do on Syndra is I throw my E to fucking Narnia like I'm just missing it. Yeah. And then I just go all in, and then my Syndra's in the back.
Exactly, yeah.
I act like an idiot, and it always works.
That's so funny.
It's so fucking funny, dude. And another thing, like you said, is like, this is especially what I see with newer Master Tier players joining the program. Yeah. Right? Then we do a review, and we're in this deployment period, a lull state. And I asked them, so what's next? I'm like, I don't know. Dragon's only in like 2 minutes, so I guess I'll just go mid, or I guess I'll just go top. And then I'm like, only in 2 minutes. To 2 minutes, it's final call, dude. We need to already be thinking about how we're going to set up which wave state so we have it pushing out at the Dragon timer, which lane assignment we need to bin in, see if we can get vision in the area beforehand. Dude, 2 minutes, it's too late to already be thinking about it 1 minute in advance. Because like we already said before in previous situations, you want to have your wave state pushed out, forcing people to respond. And if you can combine that with neutral objective timers, guys, that's when you're going to create these number advantage positions where you can just hard force on. Very complicated, many different things to keep in mind, but insanely, insanely important. Final thing I want to talk about, tempo traps and fake resets, okay? We're talking about non-linear creative gameplay. What a lot of these players struggle with is that whenever you push out a wave, whenever you're ahead, sometimes instead of resetting, and our mates may sometimes be sitting on 2k gold, you just sit in the bush. And if they then come in, you either chunk them before an objective so they can't play, or you actually kill them before the objective so they can't play. And a lot of times, people don't actually anticipate that. So what you're going to find in very high challenging games is that you're not face checking a single bush because you're always scared of a tempo trap.
Yeah.
If I'm playing Syndra, I'm Wing every single bush or Qing every single bush because there's always this risk that someone might be in there. You want to eliminate the risk to create consistency. Anything you want to add here, AJ?
No, I mean, this is spot on. I mean, the fake reset thing is kind of a similar idea with the psychological aspect, right? It's you're anticipating what the enemy is going to do, and then you devise a counter plan, right? That's what a fake reset really is. You force them to waste their spells on the wave, and then you come back, you show up on the lane, and really just the biggest thing in Master Plus, and as you get better and better and better, because like you said, you're playing against people who study this game for a living, their fundamentals are pretty much at a 99% when you play against a challenger like a Korean import. So the way you're going to win is you have to understand what they're thinking and counteract that, right? Yep. And there's a trickle-down effect. At every elo, you have to slowly improve that area.
Yep, love it. Really fun. Like, so fun. Most fun part of the game, in my opinion. The psychology 100%. Behind it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about a little bit of mindset. Because, look, the truth, mindset in this elo range, we could also talk about any type of mindset issues that there are. Because you're going to find everything in this elo range. I've had an insane amount of mindset issues. And every single time that we have a Master Tier player like join the program we're working with, we're going to find that there's at least like 1, 2, or 3 mindset issues that are present. We're just going to point out the most common ones. Imposter syndrome. Comparing yourself to the higher ranks, especially. Whenever you're master, you know you're good at the game. But you also see the apex tier, like the challenger tier players, and you know that there is not a single time where if you verse against them, that you cannot just take control of the game. You feel smothered, so you know the level of play difference. You're going to shit on yourself for that. But not only that, you're also going to blame yourself that you are not good enough yet, and you can't visualize how you're going to be able to get there. Like, there's such big of a gap that you can't even see yourself getting there. And it's so demoralizing and demotivating for someone, especially if you compare that with the LP gap that there is. If you're a new master player, you enter yourself a Master 0 LP, and you see that Grandmaster is all the way over there. And you're like, how am I ever going to get there, dude?
Yeah.
My God, that must be brutal. I honestly feel for you guys, right? It is not an easy climb. And you really want to focus on the improvement rather than the LP, because if you're going to focus on the LP and the individual wins or losses, you're guaranteed going to burn out, get lost in your ego traps, or just start flaming people, dude.
Yeah, and just to piggyback again, like the Pantheon quote we mentioned earlier, right? This is really important, Master Plus, right? Because I fall, the climb must be the destination, right? The actual path to becoming a Grandmaster and Challenger player should be exciting and the most fun, and the place you should feel great at the fact that you have to go through the slog. As weird as that sounds, like I can empathize with the fact that it's like, oh my God, I'm 1500 LP away from Grandmaster. The reality is, guys, the only thing they've done is make it visually more apparent how big of a gap there is. The gap has always been that big, to be honest. It's always been that big, just they've visually shown it now, right? They showed it to players, like it's in your face. And so you have this is the advantage I had. I think this is what made me eventually become a Grandmaster Challenger player, is I actually loved the slog. Dude, I loved being in the trenches and just being like, dude, I want to like min-max this specific skill. I'm like, oh, I lost lane to this guy. What does this guy do well, right? Or, oh, what about my Yone R was scuffed here, right? I'm like so ingrained in just trying to improve that like it didn't feel insurmountable, even though the distance was so massive, right? And so the second you start focusing on like, oh, I need to hit GM, right? I need validation from the game rather than just being like, I'm feeling validated because I'm improving and I'm just loving learning all these details, right? That's the mindset you got to have. And if you're not okay with losing games, right, and you're getting lost in the rank, right, then it's just going to be extremely difficult to improve.
Brutal. It's a lot of toxicity and bad narratives come from that. So really look at yourself, guys. Please compare yourself to yourself, how you were yesterday. Write down things that you've done better on each day. Write down improvement points for the next day. Do not look at others. Do not look at all these Korean imports or the best players on the rank. It's not important for you right now. You will get there eventually, but also do keep in mind it's going to take time. Change doesn't happen within a day. Years sometimes.
I just expect that. Yeah. Happens. You're playing against the cream of the crop, so just be okay with the journey.
Absolutely. So, some final learning objectives for these players. Once again, micro framework. Why? Because this is a detail-oriented review learning objective. We also talked about it in the previous segment, from Emerald to Master. The main thing that you need to do is get curious on how you can optimize things. Go deeper instead of wider. If you have a skirmish, and even though you won the skirmish, ask yourself the question, how could I have dealt more damage? What is a great example? Well, previous one I already mentioned is like Ahri players. They use their W before the fight, and they actually don't get their W damage off, or like an extra rotation of in the fight. A small thing like that can be that 1% difference maker that's going to win or lose you a game every once in a while. But another thing is, for example, let's take Ahri again. Maybe you're angling your Q not properly with your ult, which is going to be that you can hit an extra player, which means you can deal more damage, and therefore you can win or lose the fight. A small thing like that needs to be studied in Master Plus to get to that next level. Go deeper. One of my favorite questions, what key variable did I miss? Go to the specifics, go to the individual points of bigger plays, chunk them down. The game is really, really, really big. So instead of looking at everything, chunk one thing from a specific play, look at it individually, and go really deep on how could you fix that. And then, of course, find the solution. See every play or mistake or anything like that as an opportunity. What learning objectives stand out to you?
Yeah, so for in-game, let's start. I might go out of order, but let's start with respect the execution mental stack. So this is something I'm very passionate about. So there was a period of time where I felt like my raw clicks were not good enough, right? They could not compete to like challengers and grandmasters. So what I did is I respected the fact that, okay, in order for me to execute better clicks, other things in my gameplay have to go down in the short term, right? And I respected that. So my in-game learning objective for me was like, okay, I'm going to put all my mental energy on clicking close to my character and doing medium clicks into short clicks into medium and short clicks and bait spells, right? And bait skill shots. And so I focused on that. And I think I had a period of 60 games. I played this year every game. I think I died 18 times on average for 60 games. I literally, unironically, because I did not give a fuck how many times I got ganked. I was like actually inviting ganks. I didn't care how many 3v1s I was taking because I respected that there's no way I'm going to be thinking about all these other things. And if I want to develop that skill, I have to put all my mental energy on that. And so for you guys at Master Plus, when you want to go deeper and not wider, sacrifice other skills and to go really granular on specific skills you really want to learn in the short term, right? Yep. The other thing I really want to focus on is optimizing taking control of the game. I see this all the time with low master players is they might have a pretty sophisticated idea of what their champion wants to do. They're just not pinging it. They're just like letting their team do their own thing. And they're like, oh, well, what should I have done here? Well, actually 30 seconds, you should have pinged 30 seconds in advance. You should know exactly what you should be doing at all times and tell your team that, right? Make it crystal clear. Right, I do this all the time in my games. I'm spam, especially in like lower elo games. Right, I'm spam pinging the frick out of everything. Right, every single play. Right, yeah. I'm picking every single play that I want to do. I'm picking exactly my R, my reset when I'm moving to plays.
Yep, love it. So one of the things to mention is denying enemy win condition. Right, you're looking and you're viewing the game very high level. You don't want to only be thinking about your own win condition. Think about what the enemy's win condition can be and what you can do against it. If you're playing Rise, right, and you see that the enemies are playing 4 tanks plus Jinx, maybe you want to just spam gank the Shadow your bot lane. Maybe sacrifice a little bit of your own lane so you can make sure that the Jinx doesn't get ahead, and that way you just automatically win the game. Really or a position like that in the fight where you just chunk the Jinx, even though you kill yourself for it, she can't continue the fight, you win the fight because the enemies don't have damage. Sometimes that is the way how you can solve a puzzle. And the final thing I want to mention is that there's more than one way to play the game, okay? Stay open-minded. Whenever we do reviews together, me and AJ, it actually is just very one-sided because I've played my game. I know what I want to do. I just show him my game and he's just saying how he would react in certain situations.
Yes.
I'm not saying this is what I tried to do. This is what I tried to do. And whenever there's something that he would do different than me, we're going to debate it and figure out, okay, why would we do something like that? Get specific, get to the underlying issue. And sometimes there's positions where both plays work out and both plays are good plays. Every play is on a rank from 1 to 10. It can have like a number 1 to 10 in effectiveness. Sometimes the difference between making a number 1 and a number 2 play is very slim, and they might sometimes even intermingle or overlap. So don't think like you've got everything solved. We don't got everything solved. We're learning every single day, and that's what makes this game so fun, so beautiful, and why I can invest every single day, every single hour into this game, because I just fucking love it. The climb is fun, guys. Enjoy it. Anything else you want to end off this video with here, AJ?
No, the only thing I would say is, guys, if you're a Master Plus, this is a beautiful rank to be at, right? You're at the cream of the crop. There's so many things for you to work and improve upon. There's so many areas of your gameplay that you can be proud of, right? And make it a discussion. Join communities of like-minded people with like-minded. Find people who are like-minded, and like Tim and I have debates with them, right? Don't argue, but try to understand their perspective. Why would they think that way? Why would they think about this approach that way? Why would he give me this advice? Or why do I think this way, right? And that is how you really grow, is that curiosity, that truth-seeking mindset, and just having a fun time discussing the game, right? You're an expert at the game at this point.
Yep.
Embrace that.
And the game, it's just more than a game, guys. The game is not only a game in the sense that you're playing for this virtual thing. No, this game is a vessel. It's a prop for you to also learn more about yourself. Yes. I personally have learned so much through League. I've learned to control my ego, recognize my ego. I've learned how to deal with mental baggage, start figuring out things from my childhood, because it was actually the reason of why I was responding to certain things in the actual game. And it's helped me grow not only on the ranks, but also as a human. And every single day, I see it as a blessing and as a challenge to improve myself. And if you can go over the game with a mindset like this, there's just no way for you to fail. So I thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this masterclass, this full course of climbing in League of Legends. And if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. I appreciate y'all. If you want help on your climb, absolutely possible. Check out the link in the description. It's viable for all roles. We got experts like me and AJ, and me and AJ as well, that are here to help you. And we love helping you. So thank you all for watching. Enjoy your day.